Also claims that Kelly was given an overdose of medication that sent him to the hospital with blood clots. Kelly has since been back in solitary confinement, according to his attorney, still with these blood clots in his legs and lungs. So we're asking, is someone really trying to take his life in prison? And bringing back in our panel.
Wow.
No.
Oh, so you're trying to get killed by white people.
Wow.
The Aryan, what do they call them? Aryan brothers, Aryan League, or whatever. So what's the previous thing?
There's a bunch of them.
Like Nazi, neo-Nazi, yeah, like guys who like Hitler was the greatest and
Okay, but what's
black students.
why would he be the strongest? Maybe they were setting money to do something.
I don't know. Yeah, the thing is about killings in prison, they are never as they seem because could be somebody on the outside who wants to kill the guy on the inside. Like if Diddy right now was about to drop a file on Trump, for example, then they would look on into who wants this guy dead in prison and the normal conflicts. Let's say he's affiliated with a particular gang and they beef him with the Mexicans and they'll get a Mexican guy to kill him. But the hate come, the money and the hate come from outside. So you can never know the motive.
Anyway, what else you got for us? Because
There's a video, guys. I want to ask for your opinion. Just watch. It's about, you remember Kobe Bryant?
Kobe Bryant.
His wife is on the headlines.
okay, what's that?
Oh, by the way,
Pregnant, and here's who the father is. Vanessa Bryant, the wife of the greatest basketball player the world has ever seen. Kobe Bryant, an icon, a legend, a man who earned his place in immortality through hard work, passion, and talent. And Vanessa, she was everything to him. His love, support, and shoulder to lean on. After his tragic death, the world watched her. How she stayed strong for their daughters. Back then, she made a public promise. I will never remarry. But today, a shocking story is spreading. Vanessa Bryant is pregnant, and not just that, the father is allegedly none other than Kobe's best friend. He shared the court, hotel rooms, highs and lows with him. A man Kobe trusted. Many noticed Vanessa and him appearing together more often, but no one suspected this. Insiders claim they've been in a secret relationship for months. The pregnancy isn't a mistake, it's a plan. They want a child together. Those close to the family say Vanessa has finally found peace, as she suffered for a long time. And now, for the first time, she can finally breathe. But the public isn't so forgiving. Fans are divided. Some support her, knowing everything she's been through. Others, Kobe's wife is pregnant.
That's cold, man.
Yeah, it's cold. She's
Kobe.
That's cold. It's cold.
Hello, good morning, members. I just want to check I'm audible.
Yeah, audible. Hi. Oh, she told me she's supposed to start the committee was yesterday. She forgot. Only this is to start the committee yesterday. Oh. Mm.
Miro,
There be
Dumelang bathong. Hello.
Dumela mme.
Hey, re tla utlwa
Dumelang
diphiri
me, dumelang me.
Diphiri le makunutu.
diphiri le makunutu re tla fela tsa re di utlwile wa gaetsho.
Good morning, honorable members, the leadership from the department, DM Mahlobo and DM Sitlolo. You are welcome to this select committee meeting. We are 1 minute to commence with our business of today. So we'll be taking the preliminaries in the meantime and check who is here, who's not here. Honorable members, we have formally received an apology from Honorable Minister who is attending the government business in Russia. She's unable to be with us. Of course, DM Mahlobo will be leading the delegation to present before this committee. Let me also acknowledge DG Sean Phillips and his entire team from the department who are here to present before this select committee. Without any further ado, let me request Mr. Manele to indicate if there are apologies that are presented before us. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson. Chair, I'm happy to report that all permanent delegates to the committee, they are present in the meeting. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. We are noting that as a good gesture. The members of this committee, they are always available to execute their responsibilities. That is highly commendable, honorable members. You have not disappointed even in oversight visits. You attend as a full complement wherever members are unable to do such visits. They do apologize. Thank you very much for that. Let me request members to consider the agenda that is before us. Honourable members, here is the agenda presented before you for your adoption. Can I get a mover? Honourable Makesini?
I move, Chair. Morning.
Thank you. Honourable Makesini, move. Any seconder? Honourable Muimank, seconds, and Honourable Priet, thank you very much. The agenda is now duly adopted for our consumption. Let me recognize our whip of the committee, Honourable Molokome, and all members of this committee. Members, today we are engaging the departmental 5-year strategic plan and the APP of the department. This will also enable us as a committee in conducting our oversight and also constituting our oversight plan for 5-year period to know the areas which we need to be concentrating on our oversight, and also ascertain that the department is called before us to account on a number of commitments that they have made. This will also include how the budget is allocated, because we are about to go for budget hearings. And those budget hearings will also open a space for members as politicians to debate what is entailed in those budgets, and are those budgets aligned with the APPs that are before this committee, and how responsiveness is guaranteed, especially on this commodity called water, which is life, and sanitation, which is dignity, how the department is faring in terms of empowering other structures of government and spheres of government when they execute their responsibilities and constitutional obligations through Section 63 to enable municipalities that are unable to execute projects to get that support, which forms part of Section 154 that the committee always emphasized that all spheres of government are obliged through the Constitution that they must provide support to our municipalities. We also meet today after we have considered the audit outcomes by Auditor General, of which there are a number of concerns which we have raised and we have observed as a committee. But we have developed a report in that regard, which will be presented to the NCOP, which also entail actions that needs to be taken. So without any further ado, we'll request Honorable Mahlobo, DM, to make your political input, introductory remarks, and you also allow your team to present before the select committee. We appreciate your presence because both of you as deputy ministers and the minister, whenever you are called to come and appear before this committee, you leave other responsibilities and you respect this parliamentary and NCOP committee to be able to make you account on a number of issues that are raised by the members of public, because our interest is based on what our provinces, provincial governments and provincial communities and local government, they've put as their interest, because we are indeed representing their aspirations as we are in this house called National Council of Provinces. Let me hand over to you, Honorable DM Mahlobo. You are welcome, and we hope that this engagement will also assist you as a department on the number of issues that members of this committee will raise, so that we are able to serve our nation as envisaged. Thank you very much. Over to you, Honorable DM.
No, thank you very much, Your Excellency, Chairperson of our Select Committee, Comrade Mbimbi, and to all the members of the Select Committee, especially the whip of the committee and the whip of NCOP, where we are with DM Sitlulu, and also the Director General, supported by all the DTGs, and also the provincial heads are here. On behalf of Minister, as we have correctly indicated her apology, we are very pleased as a department to come here to present now our strategic plan and annual performance plan on the basis that the 7th administration we have been in a position to conclude the medium-term development plan for the 7th administration. Members, we are also joined by Ministers, Chief of Staff, Comrade China Todovu is here, and the other support staff. On our introductory remarks, Comrade Mbimbi, our chair, you will recall that when we had a joint sitting of the two houses, our president was in a position to give the State of the Nation address. And in the State of the Nation address, Chairperson, in a number of priorities, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa managed to indicate that water has become one of the serious issues, like electricity is, and he has prioritized the question of water and sanitation. During that particular address, he made certain remarks where he said many people in our cities, towns, and villages are experiencing more and more frequent water shortages as a result of failing water infrastructure. He further said it is impossible to live without water, and it is impossible for the economy to grow without water. Many municipalities have not reinvested their revenue they earn from these services into an upkeep of infrastructure. On the basis of these remarks by His Excellency, our President, we were to respond as the Minister of Water and Sanitation. In March this year, which is a Human Rights Month, we convened the water indaba from the 27th to the 28th of March in Gallagher Estate, where we're to look at the question of water security, including the issues of water provisioning. On record, Chairperson, we want to indicate that our country, in terms of water security, it will not run out of water by 2030. When we look at the balance sheet for water, our system remains in a balance. However, we must qualify and indicate that there are certain areas that have localized deficit, Chairperson. In the main, the issues of the demand in South Africa for water has increased on the basis that our population has grown. And the question of urbanization is putting more pressure, especially in issues like your metros and other strategic towns. The decaying infrastructure is one of the issues that we face. And at the very same time, the issues of the growth of the economy, many industries are looking forward. But more importantly, there is a challenge of climate change that has an impact around how we manage our water resources and our water services. And then lastly, the concerning matter of the deteriorating water quality. Then we had to have it, and in our discussion, Chairperson, is that there have been a number of measures that we've taken as an organization. In the main, we're undertaking municipal reforms. It is within the Operation Vulindlela, where President introduced Operation Vulindlela in the last administration, which is the 6th administration. Now this 7th administration, we have Operation Vulindlela version 2, where we needed to continue to deal with the binding constraints. And water is one of the important issues there around question of water security and issues of sustainable water supply and sanitation. But more importantly, the issues of fixing local government, as you were correctly saying that you were considering issues of the audit outcomes and the results that had them. In terms of the reforms that we're looking at, in the main, we want to ensure that while municipalities are struggling with the issues of water services provision, in as much as they've done well over the last 8 years, we want to introduce a utility model where the issues of water services authorities and the water service provider function must be separated, so that at least that utility is run as a business entity without losing the state ownership, so that all these other issues are dealt with. We are this time around introducing that particular amendment to the Water Services Act, so that at least there is that particular separation. You also alluded to the issues of support in terms of the Constitution 154, but there are also issues of interventions in terms of Section 63 of the Water Services Act, that you cannot be able to apply it without the intervention in terms of Section 139 of the Constitution. We want also to introduce a mechanism. How does we ease the way that we can introduce Section 63 without actually having these laborious issues around dealing with issues of intervention? We're also deploying our water entities, especially the water boards, on how to help a number of municipalities that are struggling, whether Mfuleni, the SPV that has been concluded now, agreed with National Treasury, Maluti Apofong in Machabeng, in Amaskran, then the issues of the North Drops that are there. When we met in Bimbi, we agree what should be the anchor pillars of our turnaround plan, whether for water security, whether it is for water and sanitation provision. The water turnaround plan is anchored on 5 elements: is to review the delivery or implementation model, including through the special purpose vehicles of concession. In other words, we wanted to have the ring fencing of the electricity and water as trading entities. Then look at a particular issue where municipalities can appoint an independent water service provider, either a municipality, whether a government entity, whether get into a private sector entity, whether in a form of SPV, concession, build, own and operate, or build, own, train and transfer, without losing the issue of the asset. The asset must still belong to the state, because other people might think that we are actually trying to privatize water. There is no intention, but it has to be run as required by law as trading services. The other matter in the turnaround plan is about increasing investment through financing options and ensuring the financial viability of the sector. In the main, we know now that our investment in infrastructure as a country, especially in water, has not matched the population growth and the demand that is coming from industrial sectors that are requiring water, let alone the investment just to get the current assets to be actually functioning at the level where we need. The third point is enhancing and strengthening technical and operational capacity and efficiency. The current assets that are there, they are not performing well. You have situation where citizens, they don't have water for days, for months. Sewer is running in the streets. There is a lack of responsiveness. And we need to get these assets to optimal functionality so that we don't have problems. We need also to build partnership through building water sensitive and resilient communities. The relationship between citizens and water in South Africa has to change in Bimbi. There is an over-exploitation of water in South Africa. When we look at the number of liters a person uses per day compared to the global average, we're hovering more than 280 liters per person per day, while the global average is around 173. Let alone the issues of wastages, let alone the issues of pollution that are happening there. And then the last turnaround point that we looked at, this plan talks to, is fighting criminality and corruption in the water sector. A number of our projects, they get to be delayed, they are not on time, they're not on budget. There is an issue of corruption around procurement, issues of corruption and criminality when infrastructure is being attacked and vandalized to be able to push some of these issues. As we are aware, Chairperson, we are also dealing with the issues of the viability of the sector. The sector must be in a position that it works. The user pay principle is an important issue. There are many people who are owing municipalities, and those who owe municipalities must be paid. But equally so, municipalities must pay our water boards. If they don't pay our water boards are not funded by the state. They are self-funding on their own. And at a particular point, we'll have a problem that our ability to intervene and support municipalities, if water boards are not in a good, healthy position, it will not work. An example, by the end of April, more than 22 billion rands is being owed to the water boards. And if the water boards are owed equally, then they will owe the Department of Water and Sanitation, who will not be in a position to have TCTA that normally goes to the market on our behalf to look for money so that we can build all this state-of-the-art infrastructure for water security. We will not be able to service our bonds. But worse, if we can't service our bonds and we don't get money from municipalities, we will not be in a position to guarantee, Chairperson, that the money can be invested back in infrastructure for the issues of the management, operation, and maintenance of this infrastructure, so that it is in a good condition, so that there is an assurance of water availability or assurance of supply of more than 90%, or even the dams will not be in a position to be maintained. They will collapse, even those canals. We are also saying that while we're meeting here, Chairperson, please note that out of the 144 water services authorities, we did our own assessment. We brought back the drop reports, the green drop, which is the effluent, the blue drop, which is the domestic water use, and the non-revenue water, which is the issues about asset management and infrastructure functionality. And 105 of these water services authorities, they can't discharge their responsibilities as water services authorities. Hence, our citizens, for a longer period, they don't have guarantees of access to water. There's an intermittent water supply, there's water disruption, or there's no water running in the taps, and the backlogs remain. And these are the matters that we have said that the 103 that we have looked, 105 that we have looked at, working with the Deputy President in the Water Task Team and Interministerial Committee of Fixing Local Government. We are working with Cooperative to deal with these issues because you know that out of the 257 municipalities, a number of them, close to 198 of them, they are actually having some problems. In this presentation we will make, there is a limitation resources what is available on support and fiscals. We will continue to administer our water services improvement grant and our water regional bulk infrastructure grant. And at this financial year, we are looking at about 500 projects that are spread across all our provinces. And the presentation chairperson will indicate how many projects per each province that they are either directly implementing themselves or we are implementing ourselves indirectly in terms of the grants, using either implementing agents, either district municipalities, whether DBSA or our own water boards. And we'll be spending around 12.3 billion rand just to be supporting that particular work. And I've spoken to the issues of the reforms that we need to do, Chairperson. But we are very pleased to be here once again with the support that you have given us over time. The department organizationally will proceed with the reforms. We are doing the issue of the National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency as approved by Cabinet. And we know that the law has been finalized, President assented into law. And there is an amendment that our portfolio committee and NA have looked at. It will also come to you around the scheduling. But the work plan of the establishment of the National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency is well on track. And we should be able to conclude the work in the beginning of next year. At the very same time, we're also continuing to establish the CMAs, which are an important organization of management of water resources at a local level. At a particular point, we'll come to you to brief you about those institutions, including the transformation of the irrigation boards into water use association. Organizationally, we're very pleased that the department has been stable over the last 3 years. The position in top management are filled. They are led by DG with highly qualified DG, including the DDGs. There are areas of capacity that we need to build, especially for regional offices in terms of particular support. We are still implementing our financial turnaround. At a particular point, the department was technically bankrupt or insolvent because of a number of issues that we had of corruption and malfeasance. We are working with the SIU and their hopes to bring those that were responsible to book. A number of investigations are continuing. At a particular point, when we come and discuss our annual report, we'll share with you how are we cleaning up our own issues of malfeasance within the organization, but broadly in the water sector. With those introductory remarks, we have a presentation that has been circulated. The DG will go through it with his team, especially the issues around the overview and context. They will actually avoid some of those issues so that we can have more time of a discussion. After they've done their presentation, then we'll hand back over to you, Mbimbi. Me and Deputy Minister Sitlulu then will lead the delegation in the engagement with your team. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. This is Sean Phillips, the DG speaking. We're presenting to the committee today. Honourable members, good morning to you all, and Chairperson. We're presenting to you today on our APP for the current financial year, and our 5-year strategic plan. I'm going to start off by just giving a very brief
sorry,
summary.
DG.
Chairperson.
We'll request, according to our rules, you can just show your face, then you can switch off and continue the presentation after. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. You should be able to see us. We're sitting in the boardroom here in our offices.
Yes, we can see you. Thank you very much. You can proceed.
Thank you. So I was saying, Chairperson, that we're presenting on this year's APP and the 5-year strategic plan. I'm going to start off by giving a very brief summary of some strategic issues as an overview, to add on a few of the points made by dear Mahlobo. And then I'm going to ask our Chief Director for Planning and Monitoring in the Office of the DG, Babawa Nyaka, to present on our performance targets. And then I'm going to ask the CFO, Frans Moatsi, to present on financial issues. So just to start with, to provide a bit of context, this slide provides a very summarized picture of the roles and responsibilities in terms of the Constitution and key subsidiary legislation for water and sanitation in the country. And it attempts to indicate what are the roles of the various entities that we have and where they're positioned in terms of these constitutional and legal roles and responsibilities. So in terms of the Constitution, water in South Africa is a national function and a local government function. The Constitution is very specific in its schedules that the delivery of water services is a municipal function. It's an original basic municipal function. With regard to national functions, the Constitution doesn't list much with regard to national functions, but the national roles and responsibilities are spelled out more, particularly in the National Water Act. In terms of the National Water Act, the national government through DWS is primarily responsible for regulating water use and water resources, issuing dam licenses. We've also taken it upon ourselves over the many decades as the national department to build large dams. It's not our sole legal prerogative to build dams. Anyone can build dams in South Africa. Some municipalities, such as the city of Cape Town and other municipalities, have built and own their own dams. And most of the dams in the country are owned by the private sector in industries such as agriculture. And then we also have a role to play in terms of the Water Services Act to regulate and support water services authorities. To implement these national responsibilities, we have the Department of Water and Sanitation. We also have the Trans-Caledon Tunnel Authority, which was set up in order to raise finance on the markets for national water resource infrastructure projects such as large dams. And as members will be aware, Parliament last year approved the National Water Infrastructure Agency Act, which will result in an amalgamation of the infrastructure branch and water trading entity in DWS with the TCTA to create a single national water resource infrastructure agency. The WTE in the department is a trading account in the department which receives revenue from the sale of raw water. And that revenue is then spent on maintenance and operation of the dams. And then we also have the catchment management agencies, which are also part of the national institutions. And two of them have been in place for some time, and we are finalizing the establishment of the remaining 4. And they have a role to play in terms of some of the water resource management functions which are currently being implemented by the department. The National Water Act makes provision for the creation of catchment management agencies and for the department to play the roles of the CMAs until they're established. And then in terms of pricing for raw water, the minister sets raw water tariffs in terms of the raw water pricing strategy. which is provides a framework for setting raw water tariffs, which has to be approved by the Minister of Finance. Then all the other responsibilities on municipal functions in terms of the Constitution, read together with the Water Services Act, the Municipal Systems Act, and the Municipal Structures Act. In terms of the Water Services Act, the National Department can establish water boards to assist municipalities. So the work that the water boards are doing is not a national government responsibility. They're doing work which is a municipal responsibility. They're established to provide support to municipalities by investing in bulk municipal infrastructure. And the reason for that is to achieve economies of scale. So, for example, it would be very expensive for each of the municipalities in Gauteng to develop their own bulk water infrastructure. It's much more cost effective, and economies of scale are achieved by having Rand Water build one set of bulk municipal infrastructure, which is treatment infrastructure and bulk storage infrastructure and some bulk pipelines. It's much cheaper to have Rand Water do that, and that infrastructure be used to service all the municipalities in Gauteng. So that's the key role of the water boards. Then we also have water user associations, which are many of them are the old irrigation boards, which have been transforming into water user associations. And then the municipalities themselves, in terms of the Constitution, are responsible for local distribution of water and for wastewater treatment. In terms of the prices, municipalities set retail water prices themselves. There's no regulation by national government in that regard, although we are now currently working on a business case for an independent economic regulator, which will, once it's established, if it's agreed to and once it's established, it will regulate water prices across the value chain, including municipal water prices, water board water prices, and raw water prices. This slide elaborates on the legislative mandate. I won't go into it in more detail. I'll leave it for members to read, and this slide as well. And this slide as well just sets the context of the national plans that we work within, including the National Development Plan and the Medium-Term Development Plan and the National Water Resource Strategy, which in terms of the National Water Act, we have to revise and publish every 5 years. To get into the strategic overview, in the context that I've mentioned, where water is basically on the one hand a national function and on the other hand a municipal function, the national function largely relates to raw water. What we mean by raw water is water that hasn't been treated. In terms of raw water, the supply of water is roughly in balance with the demand for water around the country, but there are some areas where there's deficits. There's some localized deficits. Sometimes those deficits are caused by droughts, as they were in Cape Town when it's approached day zero, and more recently in Nelson Mandela Bay. But sometimes also the deficits are caused by demand exceeding supply for raw water for various reasons. There not being enough raw water in an area, and also population growth in an area, and also another major contributor in the areas where there's deficits have been the increased leaks in municipal distribution systems. So currently, demand is occasionally exceeding the supply of water in Gauteng, and that's the main reason why we've been having water supply disruptions in Gauteng and Johannesburg, and also in eThekwini and surrounding municipalities. The demand for water is exceeding the supply for those reasons. But despite the fact that generally across the country, the supply of water is roughly balanced with the demand for water, we need to be very cautious because that situation could deteriorate in future. In some areas, such as our major urban centers, demand is increasing rapidly due to population growth and ongoing rural to urban migration. I will come just now to talk a little bit about our blue and green drop and no drop reports, but those analyses show that municipal water systems have deteriorated over the last 10 years, and part of that deterioration has been an increase in physical losses through the distribution systems, and that has also resulted in increased demand because more water is needed because so much of the water is being lost through leaks. We're also very concerned about degradation of wetlands, which are extremely important as catchments, so that catchments function efficiently, so that water is channeled into our rivers. And one of the key focus areas of the catchment management agencies is going to be to deal with this degradation of wetlands. Sewage pollution and industrial pollution is increasing of our water resources, and that makes it more expensive to treat water. And then the big unknown or uncertainty with regard to our planning is to what extent climate change is going to have an impact. It does seem very likely that climate change is going to result both in increased flooding and increased frequencies and intensity of droughts. On the positive side, up until about 5 years ago, we had a range of national water resource infrastructure projects which had been planned but had been delayed for a long time. Over the past few years, we've unblocked those projects. So, for example, the Lesotho Highlands Phase 2 water project was supposed to have been completed in 2019, but its start was delayed by 10 years. And we managed to unblock that and award all the main contracts in 2022 through our Lesotho colleagues and counterparts. Similarly, the major new water infrastructure projects to bring additional water to eThekwini and surrounding areas, the Umkomazi project, was delayed for a long time, but that was also unblocked together with National Treasury about 2 years ago when we managed to obtain a grant and interest-free loan from National Treasury to enable the tariffs from that project to be acceptable to eThekwini municipality. Similarly, the Umzimvubu project, which has been delayed was delayed for a long time because it was not possible to get funding for it, has now been unblocked. The project has been downsized in terms of scope and made more affordable. And as a result, we now have Treasury agreement to fund it, and it is now in the implementation phase. We do recognize as the National Department that we still need to do more improvement of our planning, procurement, and project management of our national water resource infrastructure projects, and that is ongoing and will continue to be a focus area for us. I've covered the rest of this slide. But in addition, it's not going to be sufficient for us just to build more dams. We've already captured more than 75% of the available opportunities for building dams in a way that captures surface water in a sustainable fashion. And the remaining opportunities for building dams are the expensive opportunities. That's why, for example, Umkomazi is so expensive. If we only focus on building dams, we're going to run out of opportunities to build more dams, and it's not going to be enough to ensure water security in the future. We're also going to need to diversify the water resource mix. We're going to need to make more use of groundwater, but in a sustainable way. Our coastal cities are going to need to make increasingly over time more use of desalination of seawater. And our cities in general are going to need to turn more towards water reuse, like many other cities in other water-scarce countries have closed cycle systems in their cities where wastewater goes around and is retreated to be drinking water again, so that there's a closed system which reduces the demand for water. And municipalities are going to need to play a key role in diversifying the water resource mix. Because of their technical nature, many of these opportunities for diversifying the water resource mix have to be developed locally, like desalination, for example, and water reuse. And then finally, if we're going to have water security in the country, we also need to treat water like the scarce resource it is. We're amongst the 30 most water-scarce countries in the world, yet our average consumption of water per capita is much higher than the international average. which is an anomaly and it's not sustainable. If we're going to have water security, we're also going to have more effective water conservation and demand management and bring down that average consumption of water per capita to below the international average. I mentioned earlier, and the Deputy Minister mentioned, that we reinstated the blue and green and no drop reports. The 2023 reports that we issued indicated a sharp decline in municipal water and sanitation services and a sharp increase in non-revenue water and leaks in municipal distribution systems. We are going to be continuing with the drop reports. This slide just gives the details of when we'll be issuing more drop reports over the next 3 years. The drop assessments of all the municipal water and sanitation systems are currently underway. In terms of SDG 6, unfortunately, on the current trajectories, South Africa is not going to meet the SDG 6 goals with regard to water and sanitation, largely because of the deterioration of water and sanitation services at municipal level as borne out by the blue, green, and no drop reports. So we've done a lot of work and had a lot of consultations with sister departments and in forums such as the Deputy President's task team, Cabinet task team. And as a result of that, consensus has developed in government as to what needs to be done to address the situation. Firstly, we need to have a renewed focus in making sure that everyone has access to at least a basic level of service. We made very good progress from 1994 until now, going from about 55% access to a basic level of water service to about 90% now. But we need to get that 90% much closer to 100%. Over the past few years, it's leveled off at about 90% because most water services authorities are using their infrastructure grants to rehabilitate existing infrastructure, which is deteriorated due to lack of maintenance, rather than to put in new infrastructure to provide access to the remaining 10%. So we are going to refocus our grants as DWS, our WISIG and RBEG grants, so that they focus more on providing access to the remaining 10%. And then there's general consensus across government that water services at municipal level must be reformed. The Deputy Minister touched on that and said that the Water Services Act's provisions that have never properly been implemented since the Act was passed in the late 1990s to have proper separation of the Water Services Authority and water service provider functions needs to be addressed. And that was a focus of the Indaba, as mentioned by the Deputy Minister. These reforms of water services are now being implemented and driven by ourselves through the Water Services Amendment Bill, which is on the agenda for the next Cabinet meeting to be presented to request Cabinet for permission for it to be submitted to Parliament. Through National Treasury's Reform of Metropolitan Trading Services Programme, which is focusing on the metropolitan municipalities, and through Phase 2 of Operation Vulindlela, as mentioned by the Deputy Minister. All of these reforms by ourselves, National Treasury, and the Presidency are all focused on similar things. They're focused on proper separation of the Water Services Authority and water service provider functioning, on ensuring that revenues from the sale of water must be ring-fenced for the water function, and that there must be single point accountability for the managers of the water services provider function in the municipality, or if it's an external service provider, in the external water service provider, which means that the head of water and sanitation in a municipality or in a municipal entity must have full control over all the management functions related to the provision of that service. Chairperson, that completes my overview of our strategic plans moving forward and a summary of where we are. Now I'd like to hand over to Babawa to present on our performance targets. Thank you.
Thank you, DG. Good morning to the members, the DMs and colleagues, and everyone in the platform. Just flowing from the context that the DG had presented and also the overview by the DM, this is just key highlights of what is contained in our 5-year strategic plan and the respective targets. What I would want to highlight is that this slide actually indicates that we have 4 priorities in the department for the next 5 years. The first one, which talks to the water services.
Sorry, before you proceed, Zugo, can you please show your face?
All right. It's Babalo Chairperson.
Oh, sorry, Babalo, sorry. Okay.
Thank you. I was just highlighting the first priority of the department.
Abakhombise computer here.
Awuveze kahle ubuso.
May I proceed, Chairperson, while they're still trying to refocus the camera?
Okay, you can proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. I was saying that the first priority of the department for the next 5 years is water services. And the 2 main issues for these water services is to ensure that the reliability of water services in the country is improved from what it currently is now to 80% by the end of the 5-year period. Secondly, as the DG has mentioned, access to water and sanitation also needs to be increased, particularly for those that did not have a previous access. In the water space, we would want to reduce that, those unserved communities to 0, and then the access to sanitation must be increased to 90%. The next slide highlights the second priority, which is what also the contextual slides that the DG mentioned on increasing our water mix. So the proportion of the water mix will be increased for all the other alternative water sources, with the intention that our surface water is also reliance is reduced. So this slide actually indicates the proportions that we're targeting by the end of the 5 years for groundwater, reuse, and desalination by the end of the 5 years. One important thing that also we would want to do to ensure that our ecological infrastructure is protected, we would want also to reduce the decline in the quality of our rivers. So we are planning that by the end of the 5 years, at least 1% of the current decline is halted and reduced. Then the next slide talks to the third priority, which is what the DM and also the DG highlighted. The blue, green, and low job reports that are published by the department, talking to the water systems, wastewater systems, and the national averages of non-revenue water in the country. The department's plan is that all the systems that are in critical condition, whether it's water and wastewater systems, must be reduced to 32% and 25% respectively. Currently, the national average for non-revenue water is currently sitting at 47%. And if we were to obtain 32% by the end of the 5-year period, that would be a brilliant feat for the country. Then the last priority, the fourth one, talks to administrative and governance activities. There is a requirement in the public service to improve our efficiency through digitalization. We are planning to implement those initiatives. And also the DG and the DM talked to our entities, and there are some that are affected by several issues, and we'd want to ensure that all the entities that you have in the department are sustainable, so 0 entities must not face unsustainability risks. So that is it in a nutshell, Chairperson, of the strategic plan. I will just quickly go through the strategic as the annual performance plan. Slide 25 and 26, Chairperson, is a key just deliverables over the medium term. The activities that we're talking to of compliance with regulatory prescripts, we're talking to your audit plans, your risks, our vacancy rate, training interventions, and all the assessments that we'll be doing over the medium term. Also, this slide, just to highlight that we do plan to implement our communications and public participation programs as well by over the medium term. Slide 27, Chairperson, talks to our preferential procurement to support small, medium, and micro enterprises, and we've highlighted our targets over the medium term. Slide 28, the Deputy Minister highlighted that we still plan to implement our financial and recovery turnaround plan, and we've highlighted our activities over the medium term. We also have programs relating to international relations and stakeholder management and partnerships that we plan to implement over the medium term. Then 29 and 30 also highlights the streamlining of our entities, supporting one of the priorities in the strategic plan. So we want just to indicate our institutional arrangements that we're planning to implement for water resources entities, which is the top one, and the water services entities, which is the last row at the slide 29. That was just on administration. When we come to water resources management, which is our core activities, this slide highlights several water resources plans that we plan to develop, and we also plan to implement over the medium term. So slide 31 highlights also our information programs that we maintain, and also the supporting gauging infrastructure that assists us in making a improvement and making informed decisions for those monitoring programs. Then if you go to slide 32, the DG and also the DM highlighted, actually the DG highlighted several of our bulk raw water infrastructure projects that we plan to have in the preparation for implementation phase, those that we plan to have under construction, and those that we plan to have completed over the medium term. Also, we do have several infrastructure that we need to maintain and operate. So we've highlighted several of those activities over the medium term that we plan to deliver. Slide 33 is also a continuation of what we have in terms of our maintenance, and also as we supply water to key strategic sectors in the country. So we plan to adhere to those water supply agreements as well. Then if you go to slide 34, that supports the protection of our ecological infrastructure. The several activities that we plan to have over the medium term are also indicated there, and also the waste management plans that we plan to implement and also develop over the medium term are highlighted in slide 34. Slide 35 talks to the legislative activities and the regulatory activities that we have, which talks to the amendment bill, when we plan to submit that in Parliament, when we plan to finalize our national water resources and implement a third edition that we've developed, and also most importantly on the regulation space, since we issue some of the licenses as highlighted in the contextual slide, and also oversight assessments over what our catchment management agencies are actually implementing on our behalf. Then if you go to slide 36, it is also a continuation of that regulatory activities that talks to the economic regulator, as the DG had mentioned, and also the monitoring of the compliance on dam safety requirements. Then if you go to slide 37, it is an indication of when we plan to assess the systems for green drop and also continuously monitor those that did not fare well in the previous financial years or in the previous assessments in terms of the regulatory requirements. Then slide 38 talks to the third program, which is the water services. The first three activities talk to our planning activities, that talks to the reliability plans that we plan to do or update for district and metro municipalities, and also those that we have to monitor and evaluate to ensure that there's compliance against those ones. Also, the performance of the municipalities, water services authorities, in terms of a municipal strategic self-assessment, and those that did not fare well, their development of their priority action plans is also indicated over the medium term. If you'll allow me, then the chairperson, I'll talk to the several bulk infrastructure projects that we plan to have implemented. But if you allow me, I can jump this slide, chairperson, because slide 41 actually indicates an executive summary of all those projects that we plan to have per province for regional bulk infrastructure, that we plan to have for construction, and the numbers that we plan to have completed, those that fall within the water services infrastructure grant, and also those that fall within a budget for facility infrastructure projects. And you will recall that the Deputy Minister mentions that the ministerial interventions that we're implementing in the municipal space, we've highlighted where those interventions are. Then if you go to slide 42, that just talks to the no drop activities, which is the water use efficiency, when we plan to have those published for the medium financial year. And then slide 43 and 44 highlights the several activities that relate to the water services regulatory prescripts, talking to the water services amendment bill, which I want to draw the members' attention to when we plan to submit those in Parliament, and the sanitation activities that we plan to do, and also the water and sanitation services policies that we plan to develop in support of the municipalities. Then the last one on this activity just talks to when we plan to publish our blue drop regulatory report, and also those systems just to monitor those that have actually not fared well. Then my last slide, Chairperson, is a summary of our support to the municipalities, which is what the Deputy Minister highlighted at the beginning. This slide actually indicates the number of projects that we plan to have implemented per province, as I had indicated before, but we've totaled those per province, and also the difference between what I've presented before is an indication of the allocations per province, per grant, and the total investment that we're making as the department for support to municipalities in the respective province. This is my last slide, Chairperson. The CFO will actually talk to the details. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the Select Committee, and greetings to Deputy Ministers. Chairperson, my name is Franz Mwatsi. I'll be taking the CFO will be taking the committee through the financial part of the presentation. Just also to indicate, Chairperson, that the budget that I'm presenting is detailed in the 2025 estimates of national expenditure of the department. So I'm only providing a high-level overview of the presentation. We have also provided an annexure with the details of the budget per province and per municipality. But for my presentation, I'll be focusing on the first slides. In summary, the department's allocation over the MTF is 137 billion, and it consists of both the main account, which is the normal department, which receives its allocation from the National Treasury. It also consists of allocation that we have for the water trading entity. It generates a revenue from the sales of water, and those funds are used, amongst others, to transfer to the TCTA for the repayment of loans, as well as to fund operations and maintenance of national water resource infrastructure. So the allocation for the department, as indicated on the slide, is 74 billion over the MTF. And then included in there is what my colleague spoke to just now, allocation for the regional bulk infrastructure grant, as well as the water services infrastructure grant. And as I've indicated, we do have details for each of those provincial and municipal allocations. The water trading entity receives allocation from the department, which we call augmentation fund. And the total budget for the water trading entity over the MTF is 62 billion, indicated per financial year as per the slide. One other key aspect that we are reporting on, Chairperson, relates to the progress we've made in the recent financial years. On underspending, we have improved over the financial years. In the 21-22 financial year, we reported 2.5 billion, which we improved until the recent financial year, where we have reported 99% spending. And even in the current financial year, we have improved. We've maintained the same level of spending. There's also a summary of what we are doing in terms of financial turnaround plans. The Deputy Minister made reference to that. We continue to implement the turnaround plans which we presented and was approved by Parliament in the previous financial years. So in that, Chairperson, I'll cover a high-level feedback on the improper expenditure, but we're also dealing with issues of audit opinions. We have achieved unqualified audit opinions for both accounts. However, we are working with the National Treasury on areas of interpretations when it comes to some of the accounting, technical accounting issues. And our goal is certainly to achieve clean audits for both accounts. So on slide number 48, this is a trend analysis of irregular expenditure indicating the progress we have made. We are still dealing with some of the historic contracts, which we have exited some of them, and some of the cases are still being attended to by the SIU as well as the South African Police Service. But we are on course to eliminate all this improper expenditure. Similarly, on the next slide, slide number 49, it relates to fruitless and wasteful expenditure. We have managed to bring down this type of expenses, and we are also on course, Chairperson, to eliminate all those remaining contracts. The next slide, Chairperson, is the budget. I've already spoken to the narrative. So these are the allocations per program, as well as economic classification. For the main account, the vote, as indicated, is 74 billion. And the next slide, slide number 51, is a summary of the water trading entities account. A significant allocation of this account relates to funds that we transfer to the TCTA, as indicated in my narratives. So all of these, we do have the details in the 2025 ENE. Then slide number 52 is a summary of all the conditional grants that we are making to the various municipalities, and the details of each municipality are contained in the annexure to this presentation. So this is for both regional bulk infrastructure grant as well as water services infrastructure grant. Then this next slide is a summary of all the indirect infrastructure grant allocations. This is where the department appoint implementing agents or implement the projects directly, chairperson. So this is capitalized on our books. And upon completion of those infrastructure assets, we then transfer them in kind to the beneficiary municipality. So we do have details for each and every municipality. And then slide number 54, these are the transfers we are making to our entities, the water trading entity, as well as the various catchment management agencies and the water boards for specific infrastructure projects. The next slide, these are the augmentation funded projects, the ones that I referred to on the water trading entity, and we do have details for each and every project. I will stop here, Chairperson. As indicated, there is an annexure for the details of each municipality. Thank you very much.
Mbembe, Chairperson and the members, DMC Klulu, we have come to the conclusion of a summarized presentation. Your Excellencies, that was divided into those particular segments. Both the strat plan and the APP have been circulated, but more importantly, in the detailed annexures of this presentation, in each province, Honorable Mbembe, you could see what we're trying to do in supporting these municipalities so that they too can be able to ensure that the right to citizens to access to water and decent sanitation is realized. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, DM and the team. We are really grateful to receive such information, detailed information, which give us a clear picture of what is happening in the department. Honorable members, before we engage the report, I've committed a big omission. We have lost a member of the NCOP, Honorable Ngobo from KZN in eThekwini region, the member of MK Party. I'll request that we observe a moment of silence in paying respect and salute her in her responsibilities that she executed whilst she was with us for a few moments. May her departed soul rest in eternal peace. Amen. Thank you. Thank you, honorable members. We are with her family during this difficult period. We were still expecting her to come back from hospital. So the news we received this week were really shocking. So let's continue engaging. Thank you very much, DM and HOD and the team. Within an allocated time, you've summarized everything, including budget, strategic plan, and APP. So members will have more time to engage because that's what is required. That means the team adhered to your call, DM, when you said, Baba Mahlobo, they must really try and leave more time for engagement. So they did exactly that. Members, you'll do the same before you talk. You show your face and you engage the report. Let me take hands. Honorable Ceza, Honorable Peter, Honorable Skill Kocher, Honorable Briette, Honorable Muimang, our chief whip, Honorable Bedenhorst, Honorable Nzimande, then Honorable Molokome, yes. So in that order, members, you have a minimum of 3 minutes and maximum of 5 minutes. But if it happens that you go beyond that, the chair will use his own determination. Thank you very much. Over to you, Babukaza.
No, thank you very much. On a sad note of the passing of our member, let me go straight to the questions to save time, Chair, to the DM. The DM, you spoke about the Operation Vulindlela. In what manner does Operation Vulindlela has in its primary function a strong state intervention of precise nationwide running water and sanitation with defined KPIs, LOT technology and network to curb pollution and drought that is engulfed Water Services Authority? The second question being, in light of the population, how realistic in the strategic plans is the 0% target in light of the population growth coupled with the new informal settlement mushrooming, against which lived experiences has the department been measured? Has the targets been measured? Because there is a 2021 South African Human Rights Commission finding on the Bushbuck Ridge, Emalahleni, Msukalikwa, Jakaru Park in Middleburg, the neglect of Lua and Ochis communities on either lack of access to water and sanitation in Mpumalanga. What is against which thing there? And then I wanted to ask just a short question on why is it that the dumping areas are always situated next to township or rural areas and not the other way around? If you can deal with that. And then in terms of the slide 17, can you provide a breakdown of withheld portions of municipal portions of revenue? How will the National Treasury's withholding of portions of municipalities' revenue to recover debt to water boards impact operational and capital completion of projects in municipalities, on operational and developmental impact in terms of operational functions, credit ratings, dependency, delay of capital projects, loss of grant funding, local economic development, community protest, and unfunded budgets. And then in terms of direct intervention, what direct intervention has the department taken in financial skills, vacancies, management of dysfunctional water service authorities such as Amatole municipality, in which communities have been left destitute in terms of dysfunctional and dry and collapsing infrastructure and towns. And then in terms of enforcement, how does the department's 5-year strategic plan and ensure that the enforcement of financial accountability through debt recovery does not result in the collapse of water and sanitation services in rural and under-resourced municipalities, pushing the people on institutional failures, punishing the people on institutional failures, so to speak? Whether the department has considered reviewing the funding and billing model of water boards to insulate public water supply from non-payment by municipalities. If yes, what are the details? And then in terms of the mediation framework, whether the department intends to establish a mediation framework between the water boards and municipalities to resolve the debt disputes without compromising service delivery that is time-bound with implementable strategies. What is the impact of the CNWRIA Then, given that the recently enacted National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency Act of 2024 established a centralized tariff-driven agency focused on large-scale revenue generating infrastructure such as dams and transfer. What concrete measures will the department implement to ensure that this agency does not exclude the poor and rural communities, particularly in the underdeveloped district like Nkangala, Mbombela, and Sibande, from access to raw water infrastructure investment? Then in terms of slide 13, it talks about water that is not safe to drink. That has increased from 5% in 2014 to 46%. What specific system, governance, and infrastructure failures, including collapse of municipal treatment works, failure to monitor quality of water, corruption in water testing labs, and budget constraint has led to this rapid regression? Then in terms of slide 16, what specific remedial outcomes does the department seek to achieve through the ongoing review of local government funding model and the finalization of water and sanitation grant framework? Will this review include redirecting funding towards dysfunctional and historical underfunded municipalities, particularly in rural districts such as OR Tambo, Amatole, Sekhukhune, and Bushbuckridge, where there is a collapse in the water infrastructure and no technical capacity? And then,
as you conclude,
I conclude, given the widespread contamination of rivers such as Vaal, Crocodile, and Umgeni due to unregulated affluent discharge from municipalities and industries, raw sewage spillage from the collapsing wastewater treatment plants, a lack of enforcement against environmental offenders, why has the department not imposed serious administrative or civil or criminal penalties on persistent polluters, including mining operations, the private sector, and municipalities? What enforcement mechanisms have been implemented to protect river systems under the constitutional and NEMA obligations? How does the department justify this limited ecological target while working class communities downstream suffer from contaminated water, fishing losses, ecosystem collapse, and increase health risks? Thank you very much, Chair. That's my...
Thank you. Honorable Ceza is from Mpumalanga Province. Let me allow the department to respond to all these questions, then we'll take Honorable Peter the next.
Thank you so much, Honorable Member, Fighter. So many questions. What we will do in responding to some of these issues, we would club them. We would start myself and DMC included, then the DG and the team. Honorable Ceza, issues of Operation Vulindlela is an intervention led by His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, and in the main, working with the National Treasurer and certain departments. And in the main, it's about actually helping the state to deal with binding constraints. Remember when we introduced the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, there were a number of binding constraints that made a number of issues not to proceed, to stimulate and get the economy going. In our case, we included them in Operation Vulindlela 1. Ours was to deal with the issues of the time that gets to be taken to finalize the water use licensing. And in the main, many organizations and businesses, they were frustrated by the department that these licenses will take even more than 2 years, 3 years without being finalized. Ultimately, we put over a period of 90 days that if we receive a license application with all the corresponding information, we're to do that. And we're very pleased that we're to deal with the backlogs. We've concluded those particular issues. Right now on Operation Vulindlela number 2, there are other areas that are there because I will not want you to go into detail them being on those ones. Water remains an important issue, especially around ensuring water security, but also ensuring issues of sustainability of supply. We remain there. That's why some of the issues when we made the presentation, when you look at water, you also look at how local government must be fixed. Therefore, it's an open documentation, Honorable Chair, that what Vulindlela seeks to do. And we're very pleased that we're part of Operation Vulindlela number 2, also in the light that President has made a decision to prioritize water. Hence, we responded to convene everybody under one roof to discuss water issues and our turnaround plan. The issues around growth in population and others, and the issues of the neglect. Many municipalities, Honorable Chair, they've done well over the last 8 years, but we've seen now that they are not coping. Our reports by the Auditor General, the reports by the department itself, by experts, and everybody else, including COGTA and National Treasurer, indicate that municipalities are not doing well. In our case, we made an example of number of communities that remain unserved, the infrastructure that has collapsed, the issues around capacity. And our turnaround plan is to deal with those. That's why we don't want people to say that are living in rural areas, they need to be neglected. They too, under the sun, they have a right to have access to water and decent sanitation. On issue number 3, the dumping areas closer to township or rural areas, that one, Honorable Chair, it has nothing to do with the department. To say why are they there. This is a municipal function. The municipal function is refuse removal. And they must work with the Department of Environmental, Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, ensure that their landfill sites, they're in the right places. Ours were just interested that they don't impact on water course. Even that when they are licensed, their stormwater, including their issues of discharges, they are not affecting our water causes, but DMC Lulu can come on that one. The DG will speak on the issue around the equitable share and the holding, what are we actually dealing with. And then they will also speak, the team led by DMC Lulu and DTG's one under DG. They will also speak about those drops reports, the collapsing schemes, including DTG Dr. Mate, because in the main is supporting municipalities. And then the issue around accountability, the debt issue, we must promote as South Africans a culture of payment. The idea that users must pay for services is a noble idea, and it must be respected. Therefore, those who cannot pay, this government has a social security net, even when it comes to basic services. We know that when it comes to free basic water, in the equitable share, there is a provision for poor households. And it is ranging for, just for water, it's about 870 rands plus. And then for sanitation, it's around 500 plus. That's why it happens. But the most important thing in the reforms, we want people who are qualifying to be properly registered. The system must be integrated. Those who get social grants, it must not be abused. But then the policies around free basic services must be adhered to, including the issues of consumer awareness, because people cannot actually continue to abuse water even if they are receiving it for free. But then those municipalities must have the billing system must work. The faulty meters must be fixed. The leaks must be fixed. Illegal connection must be fixed. And then citizens must pay so that there are no disruption around those particular issues. The funding model is the biggest issue that has been discussed. A number of you, we have led at local government, including our own chairperson, Ubabumbimbi, is a former mayor of a metro. He has also run infrastructure department like transport in KZN. The reforms and the white paper is a matter of discussions. And I hope that as a Senate Committee on Cooperative Governance, Public Administration, Human Settlement and Water, you will find time to discuss these issues. Because the system of funding local government, is not sustainable for some time. There has to be a need for a review of the funding model and the fiscal regime, while at the very same time to be more disciplined around issues of traditional funding. That's why our reforms, they talk about utility modeling, ring-fencing of the function, ring-fencing of the budgets is an important matter. The one around National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency, let's just indicate, Honorable Cesar, it has nothing to do with issues of tariff setting. The infrastructure agency is about bringing together our capabilities in a state so that we actually discover these assets that are in the state with the capability to go to the market, ensure that there is a proper governance, use our own balance sheet. We can be able to get the money for the market so that we can continue to build the water resources that are required for water security in our land. But at the very same time, the way it is designed, it will have to look at issues of both economic and social component of water without saying that the social component will never be funded. And the state will always be in a position through the mandating of the shareholder on behalf of the people, which is the minister, that she will be in a position to say, direct that agency to deal even with some of the projects, which are social projects. But we are working on the question of a roadmap. We will share with it at a particular point in time if it is required, how are we going to code them, including the objects and tenets of the National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency. But we must be able to indicate that not all our infrastructure projects are funded through the fiscus. That's why there was a TCTA, which is an SPV, established as a creature of the Act to deal with those particular issues. But tariffs, as we speak, they are all governed by the water use charges, which are in the National Water Act, but therefore there's also the issues of the pricing strategy that the DG and the team, they are working on in the reviews. It's not for the first time. Then the introduction of an independent economic regulator is to oversee that the price of water, in as much as it must be cost reflective, but the water remains affordable, but the sector remains competitive. And we are looking at an economic regulator over the entire value chain. In other words, from the water use development charge, from the bulk water charge, including the retail charge. It would be incorrect that you can only say let's have an economic regulator for only one or two aspects within the value chain. And the value chain was presented earlier on by the DG. We are looking at the value chain, but how the monies and the other matters that if we go and borrow money by the agency, we have a very same model on how can we deal with those other issues. The issues around the drinking water, the wastewater treatment system that are collapsing, DMC Tlulu will lead that particular area. Then the DG and the team, they will come through. And then I've spoken about the funding model for the local government. It suffices what we have said. And when it comes to issues of debt, we had no choice. You know, Minister worked so hard. We met with all the premiers. We met with all the MSs and the municipalities that owes water boards. They entered into payment agreements. And in the main, a number of them defaulted, but a number of them, they kept this. We even had to create a special dispensation where when people are actually paying in terms of the historical debt, but also paying the current account, there was an issue of the waiver of interest on those that are behaving well, because there are conditions if we have to be given a special dispensation. We're also even looking at the special dispensation, the very same regime that ESCOM and the Minister of Energy and Electricity to give to certain municipalities around cancelling of debts. But they can't just be cancelled arbitrarily. Therefore, the issues around payment is an important matter. Remember, with number of water boards before, Sedibeng had to fold its operation on the basis of a municipality called Machabeng and others that owes us more than 7 billion rands just for water. And we had to actually take those assets to keep our operations, integrate them into a new entity called the Val Central that covers Free State and the Northern Cape, but also Mahalis. Then they had to inherit liabilities, and some of these assets not in good condition. In our own vulnerability assessment, Mahalis and the Val Central, they remain high risk in terms of risk classification, while Rand Water and Umgeni, they remain low risk. My apology, Chairperson, that it might look like our answers would be long, but let me allow my brother DMC Hlulu, then he will hand over to DG. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Mahlobo. Good morning to you, Chairperson. Good morning to the members of the Select Committee. And thank you for the opportunity. DG, through you, I would request also DDG Zwane to then come in on the issues of enforcement, because I think it's quite important. But perhaps by way of context, Chairperson, DG highlighted during his presentation that in terms of the Green Drop Report, or in terms of the drop reports, there's been a sharp decline, particularly if you look at the Green Drop Report that tells us that we have quite a number of dysfunctional wastewater treatment works that are discharging partially treated or raw storage into our water resources. Honorable Gaza mentions the Vaal River, the hardest working river in the country, that feeds 60% of the population, as it were, in terms of abstraction and the treatment of that water to potable standards. Now, the biggest reality that we must face, and I think the members of the Select Committee traversing different provinces across many water services authorities will agree with me when I say that we do have a pollution crisis in South Africa that is caused largely by dysfunctional wastewater treatment works. But Honorable Gaza is quite correct as well. We've got industries that are also discharging into our water resources, polluting our water resources, making it difficult to, or more expensive rather, to treat to potable standards, meaning it's more expensive to sell in bulk. It means that the consumer will then also need to purchase water at an exorbitant amount, given the nature of the deeply polluted nature and extent of our water resources. In the context of the Vaal River, we, in October last year, launched the Vaal River Anti-Pollution Forum, which is a stakeholder-driven forum under the Vaal Orange Catchment Management Agency that seeks to work together with municipalities, industries, in addressing the current state of the water pollution in as far as that is concerned. Rand Water is also there as an implementing agent on behalf of the Department of Water and Sanitation in addressing the issue of the pollution in the Vaal Barrage. The reality, however, Honorable Gaza, is that if we are unable to get ourselves in a position where we are able to get these dysfunctional wastewater treatment works up and running, we will find ourselves in a situation where our water resources collapse, local economies become or are already a health hazard to the environment and to people residing near and close to our water resources. It is a fundamental fact that we cannot in any way, shape, or form begin to address these issues if we do not consider the resolutions that were taken at the Water and Sanitation in Durban that was held on the 27th and 28th of March this year, where we agreed that the triple Ps also need to be considered and need to come into play. The issue of the amendments of the Water Services Act to include a license for water services providers, in essence, professionalizing the water sector at a local government level so that we can be able to then get in as much needed investment as possible to make sure that we're able to address this issue of collapsing and decaying infrastructure. Interestingly enough, Honorable Chairperson, I conducted oversight in Limpopo and Mogalakwena, specifically around the wastewater treatment works. And one of the wastewater treatment works in Masodi in that municipality was actually rebuilt and built by one of the platinum mines there at over 260 million. What then is happening is that the mining company will then buy or purchase the final effluent because it's of such good quality. They will then purchase the effluent from the municipality to use for their day-to-day production as they expand and so forth and so on. And perhaps that's one of the examples that one needs to put forward to select committee members as one of the things that we want to see happening as the Department of Water and Sanitation in as far as getting our wastewater treatment works up and running and being able to also have that aspect of beneficiation, particularly in the context of sludge management, which is something that is not being done or something that is not being explored quite extensively in South Africa. From the enforcement point of view, and I'll let DDG to just run over the process in terms of what then happens from notices to directives and to the laying of criminal charges and civil charges that run then parallel. But the reality also is that, Honorable Ceza and Chair, through you, Chairperson, is that once we do take that route as a department, which is something that we do not want to do, of course, because as Salga would argue, it's counterproductive for government to take government to court. But however, the National Water Act does give those particular provisions as a principal act, because even if we don't take those actions, the FFE, in terms of the implementation of their principal legislation, NEMA, they will also then take that action, and that we will be, as a department, cited as a respondent in as far as that is concerned, because we would have then failed in our role in making sure that we're able to proceed with these particular enforcement actions as and when we've exhausted our administrative action. It takes 2 to 5 years for some of these cases to be completed or concluded. During that time, nothing is really happening in as far as the infrastructure is concerned. The pollution is still continuing, which is one of the biggest criticisms that we face as a department. To say, even when we do take such enforcement action or action, that the infrastructure remains as it was, and with the pollution still continuing. Honorable Ceza would have seen that the Palestine local municipality in Mpumalanga was also fined, I think, about 160 million last year. But the reality is that because the municipality is viewed as a juristic person, chairperson, is that the residents of that particular municipality ultimately need to then, cough up that money in order for the municipality to then correct their pollution, which is something that, in essence, has led to us actually considering that the amendments to the National Water Act, where personal liability actually has to be included, so that mayors and MMs and other senior directors in municipalities can begin to take personal liability for the pollution of our water resources, which is in essence creating such a huge and fundamental crisis in the country. Through you, Chairperson, I would also then request DG to then get maybe DDG Zwane to then also address from a technical point of view the issue around enforcement by us as DWS in as far as that is concerned. Thank you so much, dear Mahloba. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. It's Sean, the DG again. I'm going to just add to answer some of the questions as directed by dear Mahlobo, and then I'm going to ask DDG Zwane and DDG Mati to also add on a couple of the questions. One of the questions related to Operation Vulindlela and what its functions have been. Through Operation Vulindlela, the priorities for the water sector are set on behalf of the President. In the first phase of Operation Vulindlela, those priorities included addressing the backlog of water use licenses and improving the turnaround times for water use licenses, creating the NWIA, reinstating the blue and green and no drop reports, revising the raw water pricing strategy, and establishing the Water Partnerships Office. The usefulness of OV for us is that they have also included some key priorities which are important for the water sector, but which are not necessarily in the control of the department. So in the second phase of Operation Vulindlela, for example, they've included reforms to ring-fence revenue from the sale of water, and that requires actions by National Treasury and also by COPTA. So it's very useful for us to have this overarching program in terms of Operation Vulindlela, because it means that we get support from the presidency for things to be done by other departments as well, which are important for improvement in the water sector. We achieved most of the reforms in the first phase of Operation Vulindlela, such as improving our water use licensing and making progress towards the establishment of the NWIA. The completion of those things, like the completion of the establishing of the NWIA, is part of the second phase of Operation Vulindlela as well. Just to add to what the Deputy Minister said about providing access to communities who don't yet have a basic access to a basic water supply, that's the 0% target that the Honourable Member was referring to. That's in our 5-year. That's our 5-year target. It's not an annual target. We want to get as close to 0% as possible. Currently, the percentage of the population without that access is about 10%. So we think in 5 years' time it should be possible to get as close to 0% as possible. And I did mention in the introduction that in order to achieve that, we are going to put a lot of focus on making sure that municipalities use our grants to build new infrastructure to meet that access, rather than to rehabilitate infrastructure which has deteriorated due to a lack of maintenance. Just to add as well on the withholding of the equitable share, our two water boards that Dear Maklobo talked about, Vaal Central Water and Magalies Water, have been on the verge of bankruptcy due to non-payment by municipalities. If those two water boards go bankrupt, there will be no treated water provided to any of the municipalities in the Free State and Northwest, which means that the suffering will be immense if the two water boards go bankrupt. The water board, in terms of the country's fiscal system, water is supposed to be financially self-sustaining. The water boards don't get any operational subsidy from government. We don't get any budget from Treasury, and we wouldn't get money from Treasury even if we asked for it, for operational subsidies of the water boards, because the water sector is supposed to be financially self-sustaining. If we were to move away from that principle, it would likely have to result in a large increase in tax, in VAT or in income tax or companies tax. And we've seen that there's little likelihood of Parliament improving a large increase in tax to fund such a change in approach to make water no longer financially self-sustaining. So we had no alternative in order to prevent those two water boards from going bankrupt, but to approach National Treasury and ask them to start withholding the equitable share of the worst performing municipalities in terms of non-payments to the water boards. The equitable share isn't withheld permanently. The way it works is that a municipality is told that you'll get your first tranche of your equitable share, but we won't need to see proof, evidence that you've used that to at least partially pay your bill to the water board. Then you get another tranche of your equitable share. Again, you must show proof that you've used it to pay your current accounts to the water board. And so a municipality which does pay its invoice in full to the water board will get its full equitable share allocation. We've also tried to assist municipalities in distress by getting agreement from National Treasury for a debt write-off mechanism, which is now for the long outstanding debt, which is now being implemented between the water boards and the municipalities. I think I've answered the question as whether we can review the funding of the water boards. It's not within the government's fiscal system to review the funding of the water boards, as I've indicated, and to give them operation and for us to ask Treasury for operational funding for the water boards, because that would be moving away from water being financially self-sustaining. We do have negotiating frameworks for negotiating around debts between ourselves and the water boards and the municipalities. In many cases, the water boards have bent over backwards to allow the municipalities to improve their payments over time. Many of the water boards have entered into payment agreements with the municipalities, which enables them to improve their payments over time and to move towards full payment of their current invoices and perhaps debt write-off for the long outstanding debt. There was a question as to what led to the rapid regression in the blue drop results. In our analysis, firstly, Chairperson, the blue drop assessments are very thorough assessments. They don't only look at the condition of the infrastructure, they also look at whether the municipalities have the right staff with the right qualifications, whether they're doing the right testing of the water, and a range of other factors. So with all of that information on all the municipalities' water supply systems, we were able to carefully analyze the data and see whether there's any correlations between, for example, poor quality water and a lack of qualified staff. And as a result of that analysis, we identified three main causes of the poor blue drop results. One is that municipalities are not adhering to standard operating processes for treating raw water to make it drinkable in their water treatment works. The second is that they are not budgeting sufficiently for maintenance of the infrastructure. And the underlying causes of that is that the municipalities are not adhering to the standard operating processes because they often don't have the necessary staff with the correct qualifications. Staff such as water treatment works managers, technicians, process controllers, and scientists. The reason why they're not doing enough maintenance is because, firstly, non-revenue water, high levels of leaks, weak billing and revenue collection systems, but also because there's no legal requirement for revenue from the sale of water to be used for the water function, and often municipal councils vote for that revenue to be used for other purposes, and then insufficient money is spent on maintenance. Polani, would you like to come in on the regulatory actions against polluters?
Thank you, DG. Good morning to the committee chair, members, and the deputy ministers. Deputy Minister Setlulo has sort of covered the whole value chain of the process that we follow, from when we issue the licenses, which comes with conditions, and we do compliance monitoring to verify compliance with those conditions. Particularly for the wastewater treatment works, we also look into the permits that which precede the National Water Act to see whether there is compliance with that. And where there is non-compliance as a department, we then follow the administrative justice process, where we then issue notices to the polluters, giving them a chance to respond to our findings from the inspections. And if there's failure and we see that the responses are not addressing the issues raised, we then move into directives, and also from there we then move into prosecution, that is opening cases, either with or through the SAPS, and also then we refer the cases to NPA. It's a long process, but we have been able to make progress. For example, just between February 2024 up to the end of the last financial year, we referred cases, about 37 cases, to the NPA. But there have been an increase of these active cases, which we are looking at as a department, which we are investigating. Currently, we've got about 6,578 active cases. That's including notices, directives, as well as cases opened. We have had some successes as well, where there were 5 cases where a ruling has been made, and the department is monitoring the implementation of those court cases. But as the DM said, it's not sufficient also to address the challenges that we are having. And we have had cases where sometimes the political heads or the heads of companies are not aware of this directive that we have issued at the department or these cases. Hence, the minister, as part of the Water Indaba resolutions, she is now also writing letters to the mayors. Where we have issued a directive, the minister will also write the directive to the mayor, so that the mayor is able to take responsibilities and also is able to then engage the municipal managers and to address the directive that's been issued by the department. Thank you, Chief.
And finally, Chair, I'd like to ask DDG Marty to answer the question about Mpumalanga. Mr. Marty?
Thank you, DG. Greetings to the Chair and the honorable members. The first take is with regard to the question that has been asked. I think DM has quietly indicated how we are supporting some of the municipalities in the country. But just to be specific, in Mpumalanga, besides Likwa and Govenberg, where we are currently supporting those municipalities, when it comes to Bushbuck Ridge, Chair, we want to also indicate that SDM has indicated the department ran an assessment report led by the DG on the critical municipalities in the country, and 105 is what we have identified now. Safe to say that Bushbuck Ridge local municipality is one of those municipalities that are regarded as critical according to our assessment as the as the department based on our drop report. However, what is quite fascinating, Chair, is according to the COCTA report, this municipality is not regarded as critical on their side based on the performance, because we're looking at different indicators. So I'm highlighting this to show that based on our assessment, it's one of those critical municipalities that we are supporting. Now, to indicate what are some of the key support we're giving to the municipality, just to summarize briefly, Chair, is that we're supporting them through our WSIG. There is a project there to refurbish Maviljan wastewater treatment works. That project is almost complete, Chair. And there's also an extension of Okonhoek wastewater treatment works, which is currently under construction. There are some of the planned projects under that municipality which are under our RBIC. For instance, we are intending to upgrade Mkhulu wastewater treatment works. But what we have found as a challenge, Chair, in that municipality is, I think the honorable member will be aware, there's quite a lot of illegal connections. There's quite a lot of high water losses in that municipality, with a high unaccounted for water, which has actually resulted in a lot of water losses in that municipality. We are also supporting them with at least developing their regional water and sanitation master plan, because as part of our 5-year reliability plans, which we are supporting municipality where we are intervening, it's one of those municipalities where plans are not integrated, and hence our intervention to support this municipality to ensure that it's much more sustainable in the service delivery. So, in a high level, those are some of the interventions that we are supporting. We must also emphasize, Chair, that there is a water task team that has actually been developed or by the Premier in the province to monitor all these municipalities in the province. The department, through our provincial head and the team, forms part of that task team to constantly monitor and report on progress made by the department to support the municipality. So, DG, that is the high-level submission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, well done. You will guide us. If members are going to ask 18 questions, it will like we're making a new presentation altogether. Thank you.
Thank you to both DMs and DG for the response and the team. Let me then move to Honorable Peter.
Chair, can I just raise a point of order, please?
Yes, Honorable Badenhorst.
Yeah, Chair, thank you very much. And I don't want to put you on the spot here, Chair, but there are more than one member of this committee. And if we're going to spend an hour per committee member, we're going to be here till tonight. So in order to keep things fair, I think you need to moderate the amount of questions each member of this committee asks. And obviously look at the answers we're getting from the department as well in terms of length of the answers, to make sure that each committee member have equitable time in asking their questions. Please, Chair. Thank you very much.
I've noted that, Honorable Badenhorst. That is why from here I know how I'm going to manage it, because up to 12:45. But I'll request that members, they become fair to other members. We have learned from Honorable Ceza that if we can move with that spirit per member to ask 13 questions, the department will have to respond for an hour to one member. So let's try and correct that in the near future. Honorable Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair, and the Deputy Minister and the team as well. I don't know whether I'm audible, Chair.
Yes, you are. You can shoot your question, honored member.
Thank you so much. Given the disaster mess happening in Umtata, Honorable Deputy Minister, what surety can your department provide to this select committee about the safety measures of other municipalities and surrounding towns, so that what has happened to Umtata could not happen to other municipalities again? Which year was this dam of Umtata built, and what was the capacity of the dam then, and what is the capacity of the dam now, and the number of the population it serves then, and the number of population it serves now? Can your department, Honorable Deputy Minister, assist this select committee in terms of what support has been given or provided to these victims of flood in Eastern Cape by your department? Can your department provide with full information on the intervention in terms of Eastern Cape municipalities, in terms of Section 63 of the Water Service Act of 1997, including the progress? The last question, can your department provide progress or detailed report on intervention in terms of Section 63 of the Water Service Act of 1997 in both the local and the district municipalities? Honorable Deputy Minister, when you said there must be a funding model, who do you refer this statement to? Did you refer this statement to your government, whom you are the minister of, or did you refer this statement to the committee? Thank you so much, Minister. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Peter. Honorable Skirkocher. Then we'll take responses after.
All right. Thank you, Chairperson. Yes, I do hope that everybody will receive a fair chance. All right, let me start on doing that. I just want to find out, and I saw that there was mention in the presentation about the catchment management agencies. So what specific institutional oversight do they have in detecting, reporting, preventing water pollution that's caused by our local municipalities? As we know, Mafui was just given a criminal charge because of that. So I just want to find out, do they do anything about it? What do they do to prevent this? Because now it seems like they are there to manage these catchment areas, but it's only after residents or people that respond, then these things are gone. If there's maybe clarity on what do they do about that. Then I just want to, in all of the programs in the budgets, we're talking about all of the sub-programs, and one of them was the institutional oversight. So I just want to like to know what is clarity on this, because it appears in the budget, but there's no measurable targets anywhere listed in the APP. So I just want to find out what is this institutional oversight and what is the role, and if it's something that needs to have funds allocated to. Then I tried to look, Chairperson, on legislation and guidelines. The only thing that I could get on the blue drop and the green drop and no drop program is that the minister allocate regulations on that. So I just want to find out, why do we, and I want to understand, that's why I'm asking this, why do we take so long to do this? Because by the time we've gone to one municipality and then 3 years later we've gone back, it's regressed. Why can't this be done annually? And if so,
We've lost you, Honorable Skid Cocker. Honorable Skid Cocker, are you still there? Okay. Honorable Skid Cocker, I think he has some technical glitches, but let's respond to the question that have already been raised so that we can move to other members. We'll take him later to conclude.
No, thank you, Chair. With respect to issues around raised by Honorable Peter, our thoughts and prayers are still with the communities in the Eastern Cape that were affected, and including just to thank everybody, including the rescue teams, that they continue to try and deal with the situation that is there. There are a number of issues that we should be in a position to note just going forward. One of the challenges we have is that a number of communities all over the country have been settled either by government or they've been settled by other institutions like traditional leaders. But some people, they just settle within the floodlines, Chairperson. And it's a fundamental problem that we need to deal with, because if they are within a floodline, their vulnerability index, it increases a lot. I will not go to the merits around that, because whether you go to the VAL system, you go to KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape, and everywhere, and it's a major decision that we need to engage as government, including the work that in the last administration, when there was an incident of flooding in KwaZulu-Natal, we then had to deal with issues to say, but there were recommendations to say, how can we build better? How do we deal with these issues, including the issues of climate change risk mitigation measures. When it comes to the issues of our dams, Honorable Peter, without fail, our dams are designed in two ways. Our dams, they are designed to have a spillway. In other words, where there's a dam wall, there is a spillway that when water reaches a particular level, in a spillway, you don't have to actually control the releases or not to release the water. In other words, use the word to say uncontrolled, but it's not that it is uncontrolled because there is no human being that is there, but it's just a design aspect. When they design these dams, they design them for a particular capacity, that at a particular capacity, there is always an allowance that in all our dams, they've been made before there is any need for spillages or whether there's a need for releases. That thing is called National Flood Absorptive Capacity. It does not necessarily mean that our dams, when they are exactly at 100% full, they are going to release water. Even that dam in Umtata has some kind of an absorptive capacity in terms of flooding. And at the time when the incident happened on the 9th, those flash floods that happened, then our dams got full. Because of the engineering design, the water started to actually spill at 102% when it was full. And then when that actually happened, you could see down there at the bottom of that dam wall, there is like a horseshoe of some sort. Then the water started going down, but in between those households that were there, with some of them within the flood line, tributaries. They too, in that catchment when flooding happened, they actually got a lot of volumes of water at a higher speed of velocity. Then it has those particular devastating effects. It happens even here when the valve system was full, where to release. The valve system, in terms of the design, there's a proper dam wall there, but it has sluice gates. In other words, it's a control system on how can you be able to release water. Even the valve system, but Peter, it has a flood absorptive capacity. It does not necessarily mean when water is at exactly 100%, you will start releasing that particular water. That flood absorptive capacity is at a variance of around 16 to 17%. Actually, that's how our teams has been managing the system. But the major problems is about people actually being circled in the wrong space in terms of flood management, especially exacerbated by the frequent changes around climate change and the early warning system. Even now, as we sit here, there is a flood warning. That flood warning has been given that Eastern Cape and certain parts of the Western Cape, they are going to be flooding in terms of what's going to be happening and the headwinds that are going to be coming through. What is most important in terms of our disaster response as a country, the early warning system, the role that the weather services working with the COGTA and ourselves, we work so closely to give information out. Our ability on how citizens and the structures that are on the ground is a very, very important matter. But I don't want us to go much in details about some of those particular issues, but we're to dismiss a view by some scrupulous individuals that were sending a message that our people had actually decided to release the water from the dams and actually cause the disaster that was there. But it's a matter that is being looked at. Our support were part of the local disaster management team, the provincial teams there, were part of also the National Disaster Management Center Interministerial Committee. A lot of water-related issues. The department led by the provincial head, Portia Makanya, she's always on the ground. Under the guidance of Minister Majodina, we deployed our team of experts, of engineers, to look at the structural integrity of the dam. They've done their own assessment. But also there's a lot of infrastructure in terms of the water systems, treatment works that were highly affected. They became non-functional, including the wastewater systems. Our engineers have been working as part of the disaster response team. Our teams have been able to assist in terms of the restoration of water around Amatola district, the OR Tambo, and including the deployment even of temporary water storages that happened in that particular area. Around the Section 63 intervention, in the Eastern Cape, we don't have a Section 63 intervention. But if you look at the annexures that are there, Peter, you could see there's a lot of resources that were given to the Eastern Cape in terms of regional park infrastructure grant, water services improvement grant, and our intervention. You remember the intervention we gave to Nelson Mandela Bay when they were closer to day zero. But because we don't want to take most of the time, Bimbi, just to go through each area in the Eastern Cape, we'll request Honorable Peter just to check the slide on the Eastern Cape, including the details for each municipality on how we're looking at. In terms of the funding model is a matter of the state. In other words, it's a matter between the legislators. We have a role to play around the funding regime, like you have considered the budget that Ubaba Madiba has presented. And then on Thursday, we're dealing with the division of revenue bill so that we can deal with those. But it's also the function of the executive. We know now that after 30 years, the ideal local government we had in mind is not working because of socio-economic condition. That municipalities must be dependent in the main around the question of raising rates and taxes and also the selling of those trading services. It has not worked. And municipalities in the end, they're underfunded. That's why infrastructure challenges are coming up and a number of other issues apart from their leadership challenges and weaknesses that are there. And the white paper review process seeks to address this matter. There is no party in parliament or outside to say local government funding requires a review. And it's also in our own case. That's why in our course, just around funding of water, we looked at issues of private sector, public-public partnerships, private partnerships. That's why some of these ones, all these reforms, they are about addressing the issues of financing options, but also increasing issues of investment. DG and your team, let's deal with the issue of the CMAs and the issues why the drops are not being issued on a yearly basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. As I indicated in the presentation, we have two CMAs which have been functioning for some time, and we've recently established the remaining four. The two CMAs have already been implementing regulatory powers that they have in terms of the National Water Act. So the input made by DDG Zwane just now about all the notices and directives that we issue when people pollute the water resources, that has been done by the CMAs, by the two existing CMAs, and in time that will also be done by the other four CMAs which are being fully established currently. So the CMAs don't only wait for reports, they also monitor water quality, and if they detect problems, then they try and find what is the cause of the problem, and then they have the regulatory powers in terms of the National Water Act to take all the regulatory actions that DDG Zwane talked about. Directives, notices, criminal action as a last resort. Our institutional oversight that we talk about is the section of the department which is responsible, which assists the minister in terms of doing her oversight duties over all of our entities. We have the 7 water boards. We have the catchment management agencies as well, the TCTA. We're going to have the NWRA. There's a lot of work involved in terms of the minister's responsibility in managing the boards, agreeing on shareholder compacts, dealing with board appointments, processing reports from the entity. So that is what we mean by institutional oversight. There was a question as to why we don't do the blue and green drop reports annually. The reason for that is, as I indicated earlier, the blue and green and no drop reports are extremely thorough assessments, audits of all the municipal drinking water and wastewater systems in the country. It's a huge amount of work. They're very detailed audits. It would be very expensive for us to do them annually, and it would also be a huge workload on the municipalities themselves because they also have to be involved in the audits, and we don't want to overburden them. So for those reasons, we are doing the blue, green, and no drop reports every 2 years. But in the interim, in the year in between, we do a progress report. So if you look at my slide on our schedule of planned releases of blue and green and no drop reports, you will see that we're staggering them. So every 2 years there's a full report, and then in the year in between there's a progress report. Thank you, Chair.
Just to conclude, Chair, on the matters DG reports on, Honorable Slekogel just note that every water user who has a license from the department, they have a responsibility that they must comply with their license. They must monitor their discharges when that license is either 21 from F to K, and they must report to the state around any pollution incident. But more importantly, working with the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, we do have our environmental inspectors. They are always on the ground monitoring. We're also using technology to monitor that. While we are still waiting for the reports, the results.
Sorry, Honorable DM. It looks like Honorable Skid Kocher is not yet back in the system. Mr. Ben, are you assisting Honorable Skid Kocher?
No, I am here, Chair. I am here, Chair.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. No. I didn't see his name here, but you can proceed. Is here.
Yeah, but also we have a requirement, the Chairperson being. We want water user holders of our licenses, especially municipalities and others. They must take water samples on frequent basis, and we want them to publicize those water sample results, the water quality results, so citizens can have confidence whether their water is safe to drink or not, including those that are being actually ferried by water tankers. They must be publicized on the platforms that citizens will be in a position to access. But once again, thank you very much, Mbim.
Honorable Priyat.
So, Chair, thank you. There is proof of life. My connection is bad, so with your approval, can I just switch off my camera?
No problem.
Thanks. Chair, I will be quick. A lot has been said. So I would not like to, to take so much time. Let me maybe start by two comments. Firstly, I would like to thank the department, specifically in her absence, the Honourable Minister Majordena, after a Q&A session where I actually made mention of a outstanding license for the construction of the Marquardt Dam wall. It was sorted out with the utmost speed. So firstly, thank you for that. I think that that is very well done, and we need to build on that. Secondly, to that, Chair, I would like to say to dear Mahlobo, I am still waiting for him. We need to go and visit the wastewater treatment works in Kroonstad. That is still at a standstill, and where more than 105 million rand has been spent. So my office would be in contact with him. But Chair, maybe let me focus on three specific questions that I have to allow the other members an opportunity. I would like to find out, in terms of the fact that a lot has been said that we are a water scarce country and that we are using more than the international average. Have we looked at alternative measures, for example, desalination? I know there has been a lot of work done with regards to desalination in the Northern Cape, if I remember correctly. So are we looking at these out-of-the-box thinking ideas to look at our water resources and to actually fill in our water resources? Because boreholes are also good, but when your underground water runs out and you don't have rain, you don't have water. So that's my first question. Chairperson, then in terms of, and I think Honourable Fraser did ask that, and the department did mention that, but how are we, or do we have working relations or MOUs or something with, for example, DEFI, the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, specifically with regard to the protection of our natural resources? I think it was Honourable Skeerkogel that made mention of the Vaal River, and we know that there are so many problems of sewage running into our water resources in the Wilge River in the Free State. Oh, I am from the Free State, if the Honourable members from the department don't know. So the Vaal River, the Falls River, the Wilge River has this tremendous amounts of sewage and dirt running in. So have we looked at protecting our natural resources, having sewage nets or something in that way? And do we have that collaboration with DEFI? And then, Chairperson, lastly, a lot has been said about payment, and I know a lot of the problems with contractors is because we are not paying our contractors on time, or our municipalities are not paying our contractors on time. That's one of the reasons. But I know that we are also, for example, in Guate and Parys at the water treatment works, I think we are currently in the process of finding the 8th contractor that was either left or suspended because they could not do the work, or they left because they were not paid. So yes, being paid, the department and the DM has spoken about that, but contractors who are not able and equipped to do that, do we have a list? Do we have a process of blacklisting it? We have Honorable DM Mahlobo would know about Techno Mobile and all of the other problems we've had in Mkwaka, specifically with regard to our contractors and irregularities. So I would like to know, do we do that? Are we in the process? And how do we keep that record, not just per province, but nationally, to ensure that we don't have tenderpreneurs who go from one province to another and basically scam municipalities out of money, and then we don't have wastewater treatment works or water treatment works fixed? Chairperson, I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Priet. Honorable Muima, our Chief Whip.
Thank you, Chairperson. Greeting to yourself and Honorable Deputy Ministers and his team on the platform. Just 3 from my side, Chair. The first one relates to the 2 programs, both Program 2 and Program 3, which will definitely have to be supported because they speak to the target as outlined in the State of the Nation address, and much more given the fact that it put much more emphasis on the investment infrastructure development for water security and economic development. An example is the number of infrastructure projects that outline. But of concern is the fact that the budget around or funding for mega infrastructure development, one has to admit that it is a cause for concern, particularly given the estimates given to this mega project. Now, the question that one wants to pose to the DM and the team is whether are there any interventions that the department is doing to address this issue of public-private partnership in order to develop funding for this mega infrastructure project, because clearly the gap can be seen, and it is a cause of concern because currently as it is, it's from the APP, one can see that it is a challenge. The second one relates to the if you look at the annexures given, both in terms of the regional bulk infrastructure and also the water services infrastructure, and while one wants to comment and appreciate the intervention that the department is doing, particularly in relation to the support and through your leadership, dear Mahlobo, on the salt plugging. And maybe I suspect the DG could just give a sense, because in one of the district, at John Tower Haitsewe in both annexes, other than the Valhamahara. There are no municipalities in both the water infrastructure grant and also the regional bulk infrastructure. I'm raising this point because this is the beginning of the new term, and obviously the absence might create a bit of a scenario where they could slip through the fingers, but I suspect the DG can be able to give more information on that, even just the list, just to get a sense as to the projects that the department is doing in the John Talaghatewe district. Then the last one, just in terms of the opportunities in terms of job creation, both in terms of program 2 and program 3, for this financial year. Is there any numbers that could be provided to us? Thank you, Comrade Honorable Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mwimang. Let's take Honorable Badenhorst.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll also try and be brief. I understand other people also want to ask questions, and I'm mindful of that. I'm going to concentrate more on the Western Cape, just because I am from the Western Cape and I'm the permanent delegate for the Western Cape. I would like to know what contingency plans are in place to fast track or to co-finance Western Cape projects such as the Brandvlei Dam and the Voelvlei augmentation schemes, which are not listed at the moment in the priority mega projects, but obviously remain critical for the province of the Western Cape. And then, given that there's a reported 5.7% funding availability against the total infrastructure need, what innovative funding models, for example, private-public partnerships, are being explored to finance Western Cape water infrastructure? And then specifically, just because it's a big mega project in the Western Cape, I'd like to ask a few questions around the Clanvillian dam wall raising projects. What is the current estimated total cost of that project? Given that the initial project budget was 2.2 billion and it's now roughly sitting at about 5.66 billion. What are the total cost figure now? Where we standing now? How will that project be funded over the medium term? And are the budgeted funds sufficient? I've just noted that National Treasury has earmarked about 2.1 billion rand over the medium term for the project. Will the full project cost be covered by those allocations of Treasury, or will there be additional funding required? And if there is, how will that be funded? What is the exact progress to date? I've noted in the press recently, there was an announcement that the project is about 25% on track, the total of 25% completed, and it's on track for 2028. I just want to make sure and maybe ask for reassurance that. And then what are the key risks that could affect timely completion in 2028, and how are those risks being managed? And I think I'll stand by those questions for now. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Badenhorst. Honorable Nzimande.
No, thank you, Chair. I will be short. The first thing that one wants to raise is in terms of the plans, the way they are outlined, the outcomes.
Am I the only one who have lost you, Honorable Nzimande?
Yes.
His network is bad, Chairperson.
Yes. You can switch off the video, Honorable Nzimande.
All right. Let me switch it off.
Yeah, kodwa ugqoke kahle ungathi ngikushishisa off ngoba ngithi ugqoke kahle kakhulu ngena Ibambe lapho mzala. Qhubeka.
No, the question relates to the way they've couched their outcomes. In most cases, they speak of efficient and effectiveness. Don't they think that will be leading to subjectivity? Because you see, it's difficult to measure efficiency. It tends to be a question of a subjective thinking, so which might then impact the desired really outcomes or impact to the people. I want us to ask that first question. The second question relates, Chair, is in relation to the department looking itself beyond the point of being a policymaker or just an overseer, but as a direct responsible department that should work in cooperation with local government or Cooperative, as this function is the function that is a concurrent function. Now, the question then will relate to the question of national large water augmentation projects that were previously delayed. I don't see that in the plans to say this is when, and it's when they intend to finalize or complete those delayed projects. I want us to check whether it's me who doesn't see it or it's not my priority of the department. The second question, Chair, it's in relation to a number of challenges that on an analysis which the department has been on cumulative basis identifying as a challenge, including the issue of inequalities in access to water and sanitation. And we know that obviously it's a case if you look across the country. I don't see the plans prioritizing any strategies to address that particular aspect in terms of the plan. In as much as we know that local government is the one that must deal with it, but the department as a responsible department as a ministry for this particular aspect, I guess the plans ought to be dealing with that to ensure that at the end of the day, the issue of inequality is addressed. The issue of lack of skills for water engineers, which also has been a serious challenge. And in as much as municipalities are the one that deals with water boards, but you have incompetent people. Some of them, we were told, are musicians sitting on those boards. And we believe, obviously, there must be a way to influence which must be shown in the plans, that how you deal with those issues of the lack of skilled engineers. The last question, Chairperson, then relates to the issue of increased water demands and a decline of supply. Does that take also into cognizance the non-revenue water as they calculate the issue of the increase of the demands, or it's excluded? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Zimande. Honorable Molokome.
Thank you, Chairperson, and
Is it still morning? Oh, good day to the deputy ministers in the meeting, colleagues and officials present. Chair, I'm not going to repeat what my colleagues, the questions that they've asked, because you know every time when you are at the end, you'll find that some of your questions has been asked. Let me appreciate the presentation by the department and also appreciate the job that you are doing to make sure that you assist the municipalities in terms of the issue of water. We know that this issue, Chair, is an issue that touches hearts of our residents where we come from, especially in the different provinces that we are representing as NCOP members that you are doing, deputy ministers, and also appreciate the minister, especially in Sekhukhune and other areas in Limpopo. And the project that the DP has touched of Mohala Sodi, of the water treatment, which is the triple P, that we are seeing in Limpopo, making strides so that people of Waterberg can get, Waterberg can get water. Chair, I just want to check in terms of the project that you are implementing. We know in most cases we are told of the construction mafias that derails our progress on this project. So I want to check if the department is experiencing the same challenge with other departments, and how do you deal with this matter? Because I think DP Matlowe has touched on the issue of corruption and project delays. So if you can emphasize more, especially on the mafia constructions that we are always told when we are doing our oversight visits in various provinces. The issue of the blue drop, I think you have touched on that, but can the department also try to intervene in terms of those municipalities that were performing well on the issue of the blue drop? So I've seen even Lephalale, where I come from, that municipality used to get the certificate awards for them getting the blue drop, but now they've regressed. So is the department able to check the challenges that they are faced with, and how do you assist such municipalities so that they can get back to the very state that they were getting? The issue of what is the role that the department is playing in ensuring the implementation of the findings and recommendations of South African Human Rights Commission on water and sanitation violations in various municipalities, especially we have seen that happening in Majabe, Mafube, and Kopano local municipalities. So what is your role as the department when coming to that issue? Can you also clarify the role that you play in providing support to the victims of floods across the country? Because we know that whenever these provinces are facing the issue of floods, the issue of the water infrastructure is damaged, and this is an issue that touches or affects our citizens. So which support are you providing to those victims, and to which an extent? The other issue, Chair, or the request that I have, can the department provide us with the list of the local and district municipalities in Limpopo who have been intervened in Section 63 of Water Service Act of 1997? If there are such municipalities, can we be provided with the list? The last one, Chair, I said I'm not going to be long. Can the department table? Can the department table the consolidated report, progress report on evocation of Section 63 of the Water Service Act of 1997 in all municipalities during the last term and also this current term? Can we also be provided with that, the interventions that you have as the department for these two terms, Chair? I think I'm done with my questions. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Molokome. Let me join colleagues to commend the department for the work that you are doing on the ground. You've been in my province as well to open new water schemes in support of the municipalities to supply water in the areas which had challenges. But mine is on the Jozini Dam. How far since you have issued the certificate for Umkhanyakude district to tap into that resource which have been a reserve for the few for quite some time? Secondly, Utugela, things are not going well. Utugela district, how is the intervention in terms of Section 63 going in that district? And lastly, eThekwini, how far are the processes on the new dam, Upper Mkomazi Dam? Thank you very much. Over to you, DM and the team.
No, thank you very much, Comrade Mbimbi, and to all the members that have asked us a number of questions. We'll try with the team. We'll start at a level that is politically address them, and then the DG and the team will come through. Honorable Brett, thank you so much. We'll convey your message of congratulations to Minister on how she's able to assist on the matter you raise. On our appointment, there is Dr. Ndidi here from the Free State. You know him, is responsible there. I would suggest that before we appear on the NCOP presenting our budget and policy statement on the 10th of July, I would have loved that just before that, we go and visit Kronstadt, Machabeng, and a number of municipalities in Free State and some in Northwest. They are highly, highly struggling, and they are part of the municipalities that DG Mate, under Minister's guidance, we have identified those 105. We've given them to the DP. We are also working at a level of interministerial committee on local government, just to support these municipalities and bring them to a level of functionality. On the issue of alternative measures and sources, I just want to confirm, in our plan as a country and in terms of our policy of water mix, apart from using a lot of water, which is surface water, I wanted to indicate that you could see that there is a reconfirmation of the mix, that the mix must be supported so that we don't have a problem. The use of seawater as part of our national water resource strategy is part of the mix. We know that Western Cape, the Eastern Cape, including KwaZulu-Natal, we do have desalination plants. And some of the desalination plants, Honorable Brett, there were two challenges. One of the challenges that was there in the main was the technology. And the technology, little bit very expensive. We've engaged with a number of countries, especially in the Middle East, where in the main they are using that particular technology. It has been very, very difficult, but the more the technology, there's an offtake, the prices, Chairperson, will come down. The other challenge we used to face with desalination technologies in South Africa, there was an issue of the input cost. The input cost in the main was around the question of electricity. When the grid was very weak, it becomes a problem. But the issue that the grid is being stabilized, as a department, we are encouraging them that let's actually go through desalination as part of our reform, strengthening the mix. And then the disposal of the brine, which is an environmental issue, is being attended to. But in terms of the mix, Honorable Priet, we're also saying that groundwater remains underutilized in South Africa. There are many, many areas, and we still feel that the groundwater, we want to increase in terms of groundwater usage. In as much as in South Africa, there is a challenge of geological formation. You find that because of the kind of the rock formation that are there, some they are heavy metals and others, they might have actually caused some certain issues that are acoustic and issues of pollution, including the densification in other areas where there are a lot of people who are using septic tanks, the VIP toilets, but it does not necessarily mean that we cannot treat that water from groundwater. But groundwater, in as much as we want it to be exploited more and more, especially in a number of provinces, issues around water quality must be attended to because it's an important matter. The issue around climate change and the variation that happens there, we are absolutely correct that some of the aquifers are overexploited, some of them are drying up. That's why in our strategies, we talk about the question of artificial recharge. There is too much runoff in South Africa. Normally, the runoff in South Africa, it is estimated at more than 147,000 cubic millimeters per annum, while our yield is actually less than 27%. We can be able to capture that water more, either into the dams or recharge our aquifers. But it's part of the mix. In the mix, we have said the issue of the reuse of water in terms of effluent reuse is an important matter. So that at least the water can be used either for domestic purposes and others. And we are just reconfirming those issues to say we are looking at more and more. There is another technology, Honorable Brett, is called atmospheric water solution. The water at a particular point, we launched a community project in Paul Petersburg that personally I oversee, where there was no source of water. We were able then to steer the air. When we steer the air into a cold surface, like an aircon, it was able to produce, the water vapor was able to condense. We're able to produce liters of water. They are getting 5,000 liters of water per day. But then technology has advanced. We know that in the atmosphere, there's more than 7 trillion liters that are available that we can do. Therefore, there's something called molecular organic formation, and we work with universities here at home just to deal to say where will the additional drop of water must come from. The team will speak about the question of the MOU. Dr. Ndid is also here about the pollution in the Welfare River and so forth, and how they are protecting the resource. The payment of contractors, there are challenges in the main in Free State, I know. But at the very same time, there are those contractors who are not performing. The DG and the team will respond to that. Honorable Nzimande, the words around outcomes, efficient and effective, or efficacious, we are using the word subjective. Remember that every area of work, it has something we call it system theory, or a doctrine of a particular work. Normally, our work is infrastructure related. In terms of the systems theory, for an infrastructure, it has a design capability and a design functionality. If an infrastructure asset, whether it's civil, mechanical, hydraulic, is performing below a particular percentage, it's a function in engineering. That's why we use the word efficiency, or how effective is our plant. And most of our systems right now, you'll find that it is designed to treat 30 megaliters of water. And you find that as we speak now, that system is treating only 20 megaliters. It means its efficiency levels where it must be operating between a particular number is not operating. That's how we use the terms. But our team of the DG and Babala, they will speak to that in the main. But in our case, even like for an example, I manage a water system in a municipality. Let's make a variable of reservoirs. What is our standard operating procedure? Our standard operating procedure, it says a reservoir must be in a healthy state in terms of functionality. It must be between 60 to 80% or above. Immediately it is below that. Therefore, in terms of efficiency around that system, you will have Chairperson, someone's mic is on the Mabuela.
Please, let's mute our mics, please.
But please just read those weights in terms of those particular issues. Around issues of policy, there is no confusion. Remember, water is not water custodianship is not a concurrent functions. But we use the tenets of the law in terms of intergovernmental relations framework, cooperative governance that is actually directed into the constitution. That's why we work with provinces, we work with other spheres of government and other institutions. But the one around water delivery, it's a municipal function in terms of constitutionality. And if you can look how many times have we come in to support them from planning, getting them to get their business plans, technical reports, sending engineers, doing these assessments, including some of them intervening. There is no gap there. But the gaps that we have in terms of the legislative review and reforms is when some of them we want to come in and help, they refuse. Remember, Tshwane at a particular point, they refused an intervention until there was a new mayor that came in before the current one, who started to say, we want to work together, which was mostly positive. But if someone says, it's my function, don't get involved, what do you do when citizens' right is being violated? That's when you move away from Section 14, you go to Section 139. You can't do Section 63 unless you have that prerequisite. On issues of inequalities, all the work we've done all over the years was to address issues of lack of access to water, issues around, what do you call it, even the benefits around water access. The DG and the team, they will speak about professionalization around those who work in the water sector. But even when we're in the water industry, this matter was discussed, that nobody must work in water unless we are fit. And we don't want deployments in areas that are technical. Even some of the minimum requirements are very, very important. We even said we want to train those who are in the system working with our sitters. There must be a recognition of prior learning, but nobody in the next 3 years must work in water when they are not supposed to be working in water. In our own department, you can come and check all our top teams. They are all actually the DGs and engineers. The DTGs are engineers or natural scientists that are managing water. That's how seriously we think we are taking the issues of water. The issue around increasing demand versus the non-revenue water. Read the numbers. We said in South Africa, we are having a balance when it comes to water resources. But there are areas that have some deficit. In the main, these countries, in terms of its balance sheet, we are having 17 billion cubic meters available in our current system. But what is the yield? The yield is currently at 12 billion cubic meters per annum. It does not necessarily mean that there is a difference of 5 billion. In as much as the demand is increased on the basis of population growth, the issues of the growth in the economy, the sectors needing more, and issues of climate variation. That's why the question I was answering when it comes to Honorable Brett to say, what do we do to get the additional water? In South Africa, access to water infrastructure in terms of service delivery is at 90% plus. That's what State SA says. When it says so, it means the people that have not been covered, they're about 10%. That's why by 2030, we are looking at the number that the teacher has given you of 0. And those people must be savings. But what has been our challenge? It has been the problem of infrastructure decay and management, where in as much as you might be having 90% access, but the reliability, which is the factor to say, how many times can you be able to get water all the time? In terms of getting water, whether intermittent, whether there's disruption and what, we are currently at 68%. Our teams, they say we must be able, while we're covering the others, the reliability factor must be increased from 68% to 80% over the next 5 years. In other words, you must attend to the question of asset management, ensure that old infrastructure is replaced, the leaks are attended to, inefficiencies are attended to, the relationship between people and water around consumption levels must be reduced from 278 plus to about 170 plus. That's what it means. And non-revenue water currently is standing at around 47%. Umbimbi knows that in Durban is around 62%. Now it is coming down to around 55%. Johannesburg, we know, is around 52%. Mangaung is more than 60%. Emfuleni, we know that is around 72%. That factor has an impact around how you manage your water provision in terms of the integrated water resource management philosophy. It's an important matter that I thought, Chair, let's be able to do a clarification. Around what our Chief Whip is saying, Comrade Kenny, investment in water financing and financing options is an important matter. When it comes to financing, Honorable Moimang, remember there are 3 kinds of financing. There is a traditional financing. Traditional financing in the main come from issues of money from the grants from the state. Our own department, we've indicated just this financial year alone, it will be more than 12-something billion rands that will contribute. But someone might have had a number from the Minister of Finance to say water has been given 156 billion rands. Some of the money in grants is sits with Cooperative, like MIG. In the MIG, 50% of MIG is for water and sanitation, but it goes to municipalities. We get involved in planning, appraisal of business plans and technical reports. Human settlement, it gives its grants, the USDG for metros, the Human Settlement Development Grant in rural provinces, the informal urban upgrade grant that is there. 1/3, which is 33% of that particular amount, that amount belongs to water and sanitation, excluding the matters of sales of water in terms of the retail prices. But secondly, we have something that the DG has been leading on in supporting it. In other words, where we actually do blended financing, where there's a component where the grants are being used, and then from them, Infrastructure SA, National Treasury working with DBSA, were able to raise these monies so that we're able to go to the market. There's a lot of projects, whether Olifants, Ebenezer Scheme, and many others that are actually getting that particular amount. And President spoke about this amount, that more than 23 billion rand has been given to water and sanitation. But then there's the one that is called private sector funding. Minister has asked me to give a focal oversight around financing and reforms. One of the things in your own province, Comrade Kenny, you will know that there's a Valha Mahara scheme. And DG has assigned DDG Mate, he works with me there. We're working with the mines. So that those pipelines, the phase 1 has been completed. We're actually dealing with phase 2. We're actually ready to proceed. But there are always issues to say, what is the best implementation model? Because if private sector, they are going to put in their own money, the conditions must be okay. The one around Ivan plans, honorable whip of the committee, you know that Ivan plans nearly left, where to assist Mukhalakwana, we got involved then to build that top-of-the-art Masodi treatment works. The very same thing is happening around private funding. When you look at the oil funds management model in Sukune, how the water from the Duop Dam will be taken from there until it reaches Mkhandakwana via Capricorn. In your own case, in your province leadership, DDG Mate and the provincial head, we know Salt Plaki is applying now for a BFI, a budget facility, because some of our support, the money is not sufficient. They will speak to that, but it looks very promising. And the BFI facility now does not actually look at these applications once a year. They look at it for a number of times. But issues of around private sector funding is an important component that I thought I should spend a little bit of time around dealing with those issues. My last point before the team proceed, you know, there were many delayed projects where as a department we're embarrassed. You go to Northwest, there is something called breast treatment works. It has taken 11 years to be concluded. Guyane has taken many years. Nandoni has taken many years. Glen Williams, whether you count Zanini Dam, Yoloa Umkomazi, Umzimvubu, and all these other major projects. Over the last 2.5 years, we made a decision to unblock all our delayed projects, whether it is the Lesotho Highlands and so forth. And many of them, they've been delayed between 0 to 8 years to 9 years. And it has a major implication around water security. I'm very pleased to indicate that a number of them, they are either on implementation, others they are on planning phases, and others the TCTA is mandated by ministers and other mechanisms that are there. All of them, they've been brought back, including your Glen Williams and others, but then the team will be able to deal with those particular issues. Then there were issues that they were raised on pollution and other issues. If the MC is still here, he will be able to speak to those ones. But he said at 1 o'clock, Chair, he had just a short, quick commitment. Let me allow DG to handle the ones with the DDGs and provincial heads, especially the provincial head of Western Cape and Free State, and to a certain extent to Limpopo. And then your own input around the Teguini Chair. We are very pleased that the work that President opened as a presidential working group, working with you, firstly as a mayor at a time, with our current mayor. There is a stabilization of Teguini, but they are not out of the woods. There is a water working group that the DG at a technical level is chairing. Now we're also in Johannesburg, but DG will be able to say, but how far are we? Echozini Dam, I was there in Mkanyagu. The DDG Mate will speak to that. Remember, it's part of the Section 63 intervention, working with Zululand. I was managing some of the dynamics between the two. It is now back on track, including the issue of lower Umkomazi Dam, and most of the issues now. Remember, you helped us, Comrade Mayor. You signed that off-take. It took long. Now we're at a stage of implementation. There are challenges with communities there. I need to go down again on behalf of the minister and meet some of the traditional leaders, especially around the question of the servitude, so that we are not actually delayed. On criminality and mafias, there is a problem of people that have been killed in the water sector. We know at Teguini, they kill people that were just working around management of water tankers. Very, very unfortunate incident. And with the then Mayor Bimbi, were to put a plan with the current mayor, we proceed. But at the very same time, we know that in Randwater, someone was killed. Many of our projects are being destabilized by these mafias. That's why issues of social facilitation and how we engage with traditional leaders is very important. But the issue of vandalism of infrastructure, the president working with the minister and the minister of police, we have classified these assets as part of national key points. And then we are working with the issues of the security cluster to bring those in book who are causing problems, including security plans, because we're spending more money on security now, and money that must be used to build these assets. But more importantly, the corruption in the sector. Minister has entered into an agreement with the SIU. Now we do have a water and sanitation sector anti-corruption forum, like it was done on the issues of health and other infrastructure issues. Therefore, corruption must be fought within our ranks and those that are actually outside our system. Comrade Sean, please come through.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. Honourable Moiman asked about our interventions to try and get more private sector finance in the water sector, including PPPs. Just in summary, to add to what Dear Maklobo said, at the national level, we already have a high level of private sector financing of new national water infrastructure projects. Approximately 60% or more of all the national water resource infrastructure projects are funded by private sector financing. So, for example, the entire Lesotho Highlands Phase 2 project of about 50 billion rand is financed by bonds raised by the TCTA on the stock market, private sector finance. Many of our other major national water resource infrastructure projects are financed fully or partially by private sector finance raised by the TCTA. So, for example, the Umkomazi project, as I indicated, is going to be partially funded by Treasury through a grant and an interest-free loan to the TCTA, but 50% of the money will be raised by the TCTA on the markets. So at national level, we do already have a high level of private sector financing of key national water resource infrastructure projects. And the main reason why we're establishing the NWRIA is so that we can have a new entity with a substantial balance sheet, because it will own all the dams and it will have all the revenue streams from those dams. And the intention is for it to be able to raise even more money than the TCTA can on the basis of that balance sheet. Then turning to municipal water and sanitation infrastructure, the level of private sector finance is much lower. In fact, our level of private sector involvement in the financing of municipal water and sanitation is very low compared to other countries of a similar income level to South Africa. So it's something we are seized with and we're very concerned about. Part of the solution to the problems at municipal level is to get much more private sector finance into that function, because government simply doesn't have the money to finance it, the capital. Now, if a municipality, constitutionally and legally, we can't put in place PPPs on behalf of municipalities. In terms of the MFMA and the PFMA, only the municipal councils and the accounting officers of the municipalities can enter into PPP agreements. We can't do it on their behalf. However, we can support municipalities to do it. So we've set up, in collaboration with the Development Bank and SALGA, we've set up a water partnerships office, which we're partly funding, which is based at the DBSA, which has put in place standardized programs for various types of water PPPs, including non-revenue water reduction PPPs, seawater desalination, improving wastewater treatment, and other forms of PPPs. And that Water Partnerships Office is offering to support municipalities in putting in place these PPPs, because many of the municipalities don't have the skills or knowledge to bring bankable projects to the market. And that partially covers Honourable Breeck's question about Desalination. Desalination, by its technical nature, has to be done at a local level by municipalities. It's not really technically feasible for us to build a massive desalination plant in the KwaZulu-Natal coast, for example, to service all the municipalities in KZN. It has to be done by the different municipalities. So our Water Partnerships Office is offering support to the municipalities to do that. There are some municipalities currently which are in the process of planning or developing desalination projects. Cape Town is, eThekwini is as well, and Overstrand, amongst others, are busy developing proposals for desalination projects. Because they're greenfield projects and because they have a revenue stream associated with them, they're ideal for raising private sector finance for. So most of these projects are being planned as PPPs, the desalination projects. Honourable Griot also asked if we could do things like put sewage nets in the rivers to deal with sewage pollution. It is not really technically feasible. The sewage recursion to the rivers it normally dissolves quite quickly into the river. You won't catch much of it with nets. The solution is for the municipalities to improve the performance of their wastewater treatment works. Unfortunately, there isn't an easy, quick technical solution like catching the sewage with nets. In terms of contractors not performing and blacklisting, in terms of the Treasury regulations, contractors can only be blacklisted if they're listed on the National Treasury Blacklisting Register. And the requirement is that the accounting officer of a government department or a municipality has to report a non-performing contractor to National Treasury to be blacklisted. So I, for example, can't report poor performing contractors who are appointed by municipalities to be blacklisted. They have to be reported by the accounting officers of those municipalities. And for all the water services projects and all of our grants, our grant funding, the contracts are between the municipalities and the municipalities, unless we use an implementing agent like a water board or the DBSA. And again, the relevant accounting officers need to report non-performing contractors to Treasury for blacklisting. In addition to the Water Partnerships Office, we've also been working very closely with the Infrastructure Fund, which is another ring-fenced entity based at the DBSA, which was put in place by the President to help departments such as us and other government bodies to put in place blended finance projects. So a good example of a blended finance project is the Umkomazi project, where it's going to be partially funded by private sector finance raised by the TCTA, but because it would be too expensive for eThekwini to pay the tariffs, there's also a government contribution. So it's blended in the sense that it's a blend of government money and private sector money. So the Infrastructure Fund assisted us to get that approval for that Treasury, for that government contribution from National Treasury, and they did the financial structuring. They came up with the idea of having a 25% grant and a 25% interest-free loan, and they are now also assisting the TCTA to raise the finance on the markets for the remaining 50% of the project. There's about 7 or 8 large infrastructure fund related projects which we're working on. They've also assisted some of our water boards of these blended finance projects, in which we're putting in we are putting in a contribution as government, and the private sector is also putting in a contribution to make it a bankable project for the private sector. One of the largest of those is the Oliphants management model in Limpopo, which is a collaboration between ourselves and major mining houses in Limpopo to do a 28 billion rand project where we put in half the money and the mines put in half the money, and the bulk infrastructure which will be built will service both the mines in terms of providing them with raw water, but will also result in raw water being provided to municipalities in the area and households in the area results in approximately 380,000 people who are currently unserved getting water. That project is also facilitated by the Infrastructure Fund. It's a blended finance project, and they are also assisting the implementing agent there, which is the Levelelo Water Users Association, to raise the money in the markets for the mining, for the 50% contribution of the mining houses. I think Honourable Badenhorst asked also about what innovative funding models are being explored for the Western Cape. I think I've covered that. The Water Partnerships Office, the Infrastructure Fund, the TCTA, they're involved in projects all over the country, including in the Western Cape. On Clanwilliam Dam, we do have a commitment from National Treasury that is fully funded through the augmentation funding that we get from Treasury for our national water resource infrastructure projects. It's a multi-year project, so we get money each year from National Treasury, and Clanwilliam will be fully funded up until it's completed. I'm going to ask our acting head of infrastructure branch to come in just now to answer the questions about what percentage complete it is and when it's and what the final cost will be. On the issue of whether or not the main projects that we're doing that we're responsible for in our plans, they are, if you look on pages 91 to 108 of our APP, you will see the lists of our major projects there, many of them which were the old delayed projects, and our time frames for making progress with them. We are implementing a number of strategies to expedite our major projects, including a new infrastructure procurement policy and strategy that we put in place in terms of the National Treasury's framework for infrastructure procurement and development management, which we think will start producing results in terms of making our procurement as a national department much more efficient for infrastructure projects in future. There was a question from Honourable Nzimande as to whether the demand includes non-revenue water. The answer is yes, and I did mention that one of the reasons why demand has been increasing is because the leaks in municipal distribution systems have been increasing. The Honourable Molokome asked us to provide lists of the Section 63 interventions that we've done and we're doing around the country. We will submit that list, Chairperson. But perhaps just to mention that we haven't been able to implement Section 63 as it's written in the Water Services Act. The Water Services Act, Section 63, currently says that the Minister can take over the water and sanitation function in the municipality. In practice, that hasn't been possible because water and sanitation operation and maintenance is funded from revenue from the sale of water. And we don't have a budget to take over the maintenance and operation of municipal water and sanitation services. So we haven't been able to take it over anywhere. If we were to do that, we would have to take over the whole municipality, including the CFO's office, so that we could get those revenues from the sale of water. But in that regard, we are.
Tombokolo, please mute. Tombokolo, please mute.
In that regard, we are. One of the amendments to the Water Services Act that we talked about is to strengthen this Section 63 and to make it clear that rather than take over, we're just going to ensure that we want to increase our regulatory powers to ensure that water service providers and municipalities have a minimum level of capability to do their task. With regard to, Chairperson, your question about how far we are with Mkomazi Dam, since the offtake agreement was signed with eThekwini and the different municipalities, the TCTA immediately started processes for fundraising for the project, which are still underway, but they're also in parallel doing the detailed design, and they've appointed engineering companies and their detailed engineering design work is underway. Can I then ask Acting DDG Chamanuka to just briefly tell us what is our percentage complete on Clan William? What is the estimated cost of the project at the end of the project? And the key reasons for the cost increases. Chamanuka, Al?
Okay, thank you, DG. All protocol observed. Progress on Clan William is currently at 22%. And the estimate cost to completion is currently at 5.6 billion. The honorable member asked why the cost has increased. I think we can start from the beginning. In 2013, when the project was sort of started, the cost estimate was 2.2 billion. And then in 2018, we did a reevaluation, and the cost was 3.3 billion. And now our current estimate is 5.6. As for the estimate time to complete, we are targeting 31 May 2028. And what have we done to ensure that we can meet that date? So far, we are almost through with the preliminary works. These are the foundations, and it's the drilling, grouting, the emergency works, the quarry. All those are in place, and currently we are just finalizing a COFADEM to enable us to work even through the rain season. So I think the preparatory work is in place, and this will enable greater progress to be achieved henceforth. Thank you, DG. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Al. Rizimati, can I hand over to you with your colleagues from the relevant provincial heads to answer the questions relevant to you? Rizimati?
Thanks, DG. Ike should first take on the questions on the Northern Cape. Briefly, Ike, come through.
Good afternoon, honorable members, and to the deputy ministers and all protocol observed. Thank you very much, DDG. For the district, John Taulo Gaitsewe, we are currently having around an allocation of about 100, just under 100 million on the WSIG grant. And this is spread across the 3 municipalities, which is Jomorolong, Gasekgonyana, and Gamagara. And in terms of the water and sanitation backlogs, the municipality with the highest backlogs is Jomorolong. So therefore, the allocation is representative of the backlogs as they are. In terms of sanitation, Jomorolong is sitting at about 50%, and for water, around 34% in terms of backlogs. And for the current financial year on the APP, we are having 3 projects that are earmarked for completion, notwithstanding the projects that are still under construction. And in terms of the RBIC, we've got the Vaal-Gamagara pipeline that DM has already spoken to, so I won't touch on that, but that's phase 2 of the Vaal-Gamagara, which will then cater for the Katu Gamagara local municipality, as well as the northern part of the Jomorolong municipality. And under planning for RBIC, we are having a few projects that are not yet on the APP, but is work in progress. That is for Kuruman Wastewater Treatment Facility. And in terms of Vaal-Gamagara, there's a phase 3 that is planned for feasibility to expand that Vaal-Gamagara network into the northern part of Jomorolong to cater for the villages in that area, to assist also with the backlogs for water infrastructure, as well as the Katu bulk water supply, which is also one of the projects that is currently at feasibility for RBIC. So there are a number of investments that are in progress in terms of the district, in terms of water and sanitation services. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ike. Angela, can you come through and give a quick high level on the UKDM as well as the Utukela district with regard to the agreement as well as progress on the ground. Angela?
Afternoon, honourable members, deputy ministers, colleagues. To start with the Section 63 intervention in the Chukela District Municipality, there has been quite a protracted negotiation in terms of concluding that agreement, primarily because of a lack of funding for the operation and maintenance component of it. The agreement is now finalised and we anticipate that it will be signed before the end of the month, and implementation will then start with Mgeni Water as the implementing agent. In terms of the intervention in Mkanyakude and the utilization of water from Jasini Dam, the municipality is progressing with implementation of projects and bulk abstraction. That work is progressing reasonably well under the Section 63 intervention. Progress has started to improve with that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Angela. The last second issue was the one for Free State, Dr. Ntili, in high level.
Thank you very much, DDG, Chair, and Deputy Ministers and members. For the Free State, I think the issue of the Kroonstad wastewater treatment works, which we are really in the second phase, just to mention, it was also subjected to forensic investigations in which it was cleared, but we can be able to provide those particular information. The progress now is 63% expenditure. It is 63 million, and the project cost is 129 million. With respect to Mafube, the wastewater treatment works, which is really the one which is really contributing to the pollution in Velge. The department had also to put Rainwater to be implementing agent at this stage. The wastewater treatment works, which is really been refurbished, the overall percentage is 63%. The project cost is 267 million rand, and the expenditure to date is 70 million, and we are really moving at a good space. It was also visited by the Deputy Minister. We want to also to mention that in terms of Machabeng, we've got several packages which are really at a good state. We are really dealing with the two wastewater treatment works, which are really at almost about 40% in terms of refurbishment and Kutlwaneng and Tabong. And we have already looked at almost about 11 pump stations which have been completed. We are starting to be handed over. We are really at a high in our performance, and we were going to also to deliver some of those particular completed projects towards Machabeng on the 26th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ntili. DG, those were the questions for the affected provincial heads. The one for Mpumalanga we've addressed. The one for Eastern Cape, DM has already responded to that. I think we've addressed the question. Thank you, DG. Thank you, Chair.
Risimati, Josini.
Yeah, the Josini.
They've covered Josini.
We're covered by Angela.
Okay, thank you. Then Honourable Molokome also asked about what we're doing to assist municipalities who used to perform well in terms of blue drop but are regressing. If you look at our detailed blue and green and no drop reports, we don't only identify what is wrong with the municipal water and wastewater systems, we also go into detail in those reports as to exactly what the municipality needs to address it. So the blue, green and no drop reports are both a regulatory mechanism and a support mechanism. And a municipality which wants to improve can use the blue and green drop report, and if they follow the recommendations in there and implement the things in there, they will improve. And we workshop those blue and green drop reports with each municipality in detail. So we provide them with quite extensive support in terms of advice as to what they need to do to improve their blue and green drop results. Honourable Molokome also asked as to how we're responding to the Human Rights Commission report. We have had a number of very detailed engagements with the Human Rights Commission, and we have engaged with all of their reports in great detail, and we've indicated to them exactly what we're doing. I won't go into all of it now because it's very extensive, but just to say that we have given very detailed responses and had interactive engagements with the Human Rights Commission. Then finally, Chair, I'd like to ask DDG Zwane to just answer two of the remaining questions.
Thank you, DG. I will address the first one, which is on the MOU with the FFE. Indeed, we do have an MOU with the FFE, which we are currently amending to address emerging issues. In the FFE, they look into issues of broader environmental issues in terms of NEMA, while we specialize in water resource management and pollution, but we hold polluters under our respective legislation. We also conduct joint investigation for key sectors. Maybe to make an example, for the Yakasfontein Dam, when the tailings dam, which failed in 2022, then the FFE led in conducting those investigations together with the department, and then we also opened the case as a collective. Recently, when there were issues with the Umbilo in Durban, the FFE, they opened the case and we jointly conducted an inspection. We do also collaborate on a quarterly basis where the three departments, including the DMPR, we meet to discuss issues of regulation, legislation, as well as any related policies. But we do engage each other, and they are also parts of our anti-pollution forum, including the World Anti-Pollution Forum, which will be effective.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, DM Mahlobo, Comrade Mahlobo, and DM Sihlolo for leading the team to engage us at this level. Because of time constraints, on behalf of the leadership collective of the Select Committee, let us express our deepest gratitude to the information that you have shared with us, and we are looking forward on the debate for the budgets as well as engaging in our Select Committee meetings. We can't exhaust all issues, but thank you very much to the DG and the entire team and the provincial delegations from the department. Thank you very much for your efforts and for also responding adequately to the questions that were raised by honorable members. With that, we are about to adjourn, and we are looking forward to further engagements. Honorable members, before we adjourn, we'll be circulating a report on our engagement with Cooperative, traditional leadership, and MISA, and as well as SALCA. You can make comments in that report, then we'll consider and adopt that report in the next meeting next week, so that we can consolidate that report for NCOP processing. The meeting is now still adjourned till further notice. Thank you, DM. Thank you, the team. Continue the good work. We are seeing you that you are on the ground and continue to support your initiatives. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much, Mbembe and the team. Thank you.